Yeah. I'm ready to play now. Put me in the game now. I came here to prove it. I'm ready to do it. I can't be afraid now. Put me on the stage now. I'm ready to rage now. I feel like an animal stuck in a cage and I'm ready to break out. My time, my time.
morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Aussie Mix and Fix Week 13 special event here on the iRacing Esports Network. Alongside me, Scott Newton, is Daniel Leet. Welcome, Daniel. We've had a fantastic Season 11 of the AMF GT Series, and with the conclusion of that last week at the last round of the championship with Tim Phoeben taking out the championship overall. I think it was at Belle Isle, if memory serves me correctly. So we had a fantastic round at Belle Isle for the final round of the championship. But yeah, we're just coming up into qualifying tonight. And what are your thoughts heading into today's Week 13 special event?
Yeah, good evening, Scott, and all the viewers tuning in. Great to have you back on board again. Look, I'm really looking forward to this. A little bit different. Week 13, as you said, we're switching away from the traditional GT format, moving over to the old Lotus 79 on the historic layout of Barcelona. Pretty good combination. We saw some practice servers earlier on where the guys were really pushing the cars really out sideways, which is what you love to see in these things. But for the race tonight, should be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, certainly. We're just coming up to the start of the top 10 shootout at this point. We had a pre-qualifying server that determined the top 10 shootout, and currently we've got Edward Van Velsen on the track right now. As he's coming around through the final sector right now to start his lap. Coming out of the final corner now to start the first flying lap of the top 10 shootout here at Circuit of Barcelona, Catalunya. Heading up the straight, getting up to 260 kilometers an hour into turn 1, braking at the 100 meter marker. It's very nice turn 1 there. You want to try and get the back end of the car out to get the maximum amount of grip and the heat into the tyres. But so far it's as though he's had a very clean first sector.
Yeah, noticing a little bit of push in the front end of the car as he ran up through turn 2 there, not wanting to bite in, so a little bit low on the tyre pressures early on. But getting the car around nicely, it seems to be really secure in the back ends. We're seeing him fire down into turn number 4 now. Really solid exit there. Heads up to the quick little left-right through the chicane. The car looking quite good. Doesn't get up on that curb, and I think we'll see a lot of guys try and utilise that later on. Mid-corner exit looking very nice. Right on board down to the old hairpin here at the moment. Getting in, braking just before the barrier sign, so really utilising that downforce to get the car turned in. It looks quite good. Gets up on the power nice and early. Driving out very, very nicely there. And that car is actually starting to come back to him a bit more as the temperatures come up. Really starting to see the lap fire. Oh, it just catches the dirt and almost had to abort that lap. I don't think it's ejected it for him yet. Just kept it off the dirt, which is lucky for him there. And he comes through that final corner. Set our first lap time tonight, and it is a 1:35.89. Not too bad.
Yeah, not the best of lap times to start off tonight's event, but yeah, given that Van Velsen had a mistake at the exit entry the final sector, yeah, it was certainly not the best way to start the event. So Damon Stockton now our second runner here tonight, just coming through turn number 1. I'm just trying to get the sector comparison up at the moment. And
car struggling a little mid-corner there through 2. Something we're seeing early on here is the guys trying to get these cars up to pressure and start with early on. They're struggling a little bit for that mid-corner turn-in. But as we saw from the last driver out there, Van Velsen, the tyres came up quite nicely towards the back end of the lap. He was able to really push on. Damon seems to have got that car up to pressure now, so looking good. The sector time's very competitive at the moment as well.
So it's about half a second down at the second sector marker, but we know that Van Velsen had this huge mistake at the corner we're coming through right now. Much better for Stockton there. keeping it off the dirt on the exit there. You can take quite a lot of curb on that second to last corner there. But Stockton not utilising that as much as possible, but we'll see what the lap time is for Stockton this time. And it is a 35.615, so he goes to provisional pole position. And we're about to see Lob starting a lap right now for DPR Racing.
Yeah, Damon 3/10 quicker last time by as well, so that's a good run there, and just shows that if Van Velsen had got that nice exit to finish off the lap, could have been in good position. Lob down into turn 1, uses a little bit of that curb, which we saw made very familiar by Max Verstappen when he raced in the Supercars E-Series. Saw him taking a really wide line and entry through there. Lob's car looking a little bit better through turn 2. It's keeping the nose in quite nice, not getting as much push as we've seen from the last 2 drivers. Down into Repsol. Car working very, very nicely here. Maintains that inside corner exit. Little bit of wiggle on the exit, so he's just got the enough traction there to get that car through. Down into 5, looking quite nice. Good exit, using all the curb exit there. Runs up to 7 and 8. Takes a little bit of the inside curb, the back end stepping out just a fraction there. Gets good power down on the run up to turn 9 here, and if he can nail this, he's going to be in for a really good run down through to turn 10 here. The car looking very, very good at this point. Maybe just a little bit more in the tyre pressures. He's had obviously a chance to evaluate from those last 2 drivers through just to see how it works, and I think he's just tweaked that quite nicely there. Really solid exit on the run up through to turn 12. Slides the front end just a fraction. That'll hurt him just a little bit, but is able to bring it in to conclude the lap. Runs it out wide, doesn't pick up the grass that we saw Van Velsen do. Nice solid exit through turn 13. Down through the final lap, picks up a little bit of the grass, run very, very wide, and this will be a really solid lap. 2 purple sectors to finish off the lap, and that promotes him up into provisional pole 134.62.
Yeah, fantastic time there from Lob to put him provisional pole. It was near on a second quicker than Stockton, but going to look at Dean Ross, about to start his lap. He was the 7th quickest in the pre-qualifying session, so 7 more drivers to go, inclusive of Dean, and gets a solid turn 1, not utilising the exit of the turn 2 there, but sliding it around turn 3. A bit of a correction there through the mid to exit part of the corner. Down into second gear. I'll see if we can go on board quickly. But yeah, through turn 6 now. You got to be careful of that yellow sausage curve on the exit there as well. Otherwise, you'll bottom out the car and certainly do a lot of floor damage there. But coming up to the old hairpin now. Gets it nice and tucked in there. Runs it out wide there, and back over to the left. And through the final corner now he goes. You've got to keep it in 4th gear to maintain the momentum. Oh, and he runs wide. That's going to be an off track, and that's going to be invalidated lap. And Ross won't start better than, assuming that everyone else puts in a time that looks as though that he's going to start at the back end of the top 10. So going to follow Blake Delaney now, who was the 6th fastest qualifier in the pre-qualifying session.
Nice run for Delaney. Gets it down in through turn 1. A little bit of understeer, actually struggling a lot with understeer through 1, a little bit through 2. Able to recover. That's going to hurt him just a touch. You can see the amount of steering lock though he's got on that car, and a slight wiggle mid-corner. That's going to hurt as well. We'll wait for the sector times to start coming through. Fires into turn 4 now. Car still not quite gripped up at the front there. He's struggling on the initial turn-in phase. down into 5 now. It's starting to come back to him a little bit more. There's not as much understeer mid-corner as the tyres start to come up. And for the viewers not familiar with driving this car, do have a gated 6-speed shifter in these. Do have the clutch inclusion, which we don't get a lot to use anymore through the advanced Tiptronic and the paddle shifters that we have on the GTs, quite as the cars that we normally run. But through sector 2, it's a great lap there for Delaney, quickest so far, and a 36.8 in the mid corner. The car's really starting to come back to him now. He gets a nice exit through 10, up into 12. It's maintaining the grip through the mid corner. They're able to get the exit out quite nicely. Runs down past that updated layout of the course down through turn 13, fires through the final corner, and the car looking very, very good. Actually struggled a little bit mid corner, picks it up, keeps it off the grass, and see what time he can put down as he works his way towards the finish line. Comes home in provisional P2 at the moment. It's a really good lap to finish that off.
Yeah, 35 dead for Blake Delaney, puts in P2, and just coming up to the Velocity Motorsport Magazine driver of Matt Morris. He's coming up to start his lap, so we've got halfway through the field right now. And coming up into turn 1 now, just looking at the edge of the grass there, braking at the 100-metre marker. Taking a lot of that entry curve in turn 2. Sliding it around turn 3. Got to be careful, you don't want to force too much oversteer over the tarmac there, because then it will send the car into a spin, as the car has got a medium downforce package here today. Fixed that up for all of the drivers out there today. But coming through turns, I think 6 and 7 complex there through 8. Doesn't shift down into third. Oh, so into second, sorry. That's the third good corner, heading down to back straight there. Into the old hairpin. Gets it tucked in nicely. Swings it around, falls it back into second. You gotta be careful of this exit gravel curb as well, like we found out with Van Velsen, the first driver to start a lap here. But yeah, across the line, Matt Morris, what time does he do? And he puts it on pole provisionally with a 34.3, so fantastic lap from him, the VMMR driver.
Up next for his lap, Tim Feeman for Mark 1 Esports. So yeah, good opening lap. Let's see how he goes down in through turn 1, where we've seen a lot of drivers have a bit of an issue. Kicks up the dirt, runs the Max Verstappen line very wide through 1. Good mid-corner speed. The car looking quite nice already. A little bit of a drift to turn 2. Up through the long turn 3. The car's hanging in quite nicely along that inside apex there, which is what you want to see. Runs it up nicely through the exit of 3 into 4 with a lot of speed down through Repsol here at the moment. The car looking really, really nice. It's probably the first car we've seen where we've been able to generate the tyre pressure early on to get the mid-corner entry as he works his way down through turn 5. We'll just keep an eye on the sector times just to see how they compare as he runs down nicely here in turn 7. Not taking too much of a wide entry there. Actually hurts him just a little bit. Can't get the car turned in, which ultimately sacrifices a little bit through turn 8. Now up through 9, the quick corner. Car looking very, very good. Brings it back across to the traditional run in to turn 10 here. Braking very, very late. Drops it back a few gears, turns it in. The car's maintaining that grip mid-corner. Nice on the exit as well. Picks up a couple of those curbs, the cones on the outside. Don't need those where we're going at the moment. But very clean exit here for Tim Feeman. And throws it through. Last couple of corners here, we'll see how he goes. Hits that yellow curb. That'll have really unsettled the car. As you see, the understeer mid-corner doesn't run it off the dirt. And his lap time as he comes across will be... I think that will have been an invalidated one for the pickup there.
So unfortunate there for the Season 11 champion of Timothy Feeman. But we've got Scott Gamble coming up, and he's going to Oh, he almost gets held up there by Tim Phoeben. But yeah, Gamble was very, very quick in the practice sessions leading up to this event, and you can see that the amount of oversteer that he got through turn 3 just shows you how much he's pushing through turn 4. And he's a very fast sector 1. He's just under a tenth up on Matt Morris. See what he can do in sector 2, coming up through 6, 7, 8 complex here. Very, very nice there. Didn't click the curb there, got as close as he would needed to. And you got to be wary of the off the track on the exit at 8 there. And just about gets away with it. Coming up to the it's just past the second intermediate now, and he's about just under a tenth down. So we'll see how he goes through the final sector. A bit of a mistake there through turn 11 there, through 12 and 13 there. Runs it wide and utilises most of the track there, and he's put in a 3rd position time, so not the best for Gamble, but certainly a very, very strong position at the moment.
Adam Briggs about to start his quick lap here as well. So this will be driver number 7, well, actually no, driver 8 now that's going through. Bit of a traditional line, a little bit of curb down into 1. It looks quite nice early on. Actually gets the car hooked up very nicely through there. Maybe just a touch slower than what we've seen from a few of the other guys, but already the mid-corner speed very, very good for the DPR driver. Exiting up through 3, utilising the track as much as he dares on the run up into 4 here. Tyres working very, very well. Not seeing as much steering lock as what we've seen from some of the past drivers out there. There's been a very good warm-up lap on the run-in. Runs a little bit wide through turn 5. Uses a bit extra of that curb on the way out, but not looking too bad. Actually a bit quicker than what we've seen from Matt Morris, 2 tenths faster. First time by, nearly gets up on that sausage curb on the exit at 8 there, so that'll have hurt him just a fraction there. Throws it in through 9. Car hanging on quite nicely here. Down into turn 10, the old hairpin, braking just before the scaffolding over the top of the circuit there. Car very, very compliant through the long turn 10, up into 12 now. He's struggling a little bit maybe for the front grip. Don't know where he's maybe set those tyre pressures just a fraction higher to help the initial turn in. Whereas he runs down here through 13, keeps off that the yellow curb on the outside, runs it beautifully through the final corner, and this will be a really solid lap. Comes across the line to complete it, and it'll actually move him up to provisional 30, bumps down Scott Gamble. Yeah, it was a really solid lap there from Stuart Vaughan to complete the pole position. And for all the drivers that came out, we just got a really good opportunity to see just how hard they're pushing a few of the guys. Unfortunately, not able to get their laps in, running a little bit wide early on. But interesting to see some of the lines that drivers are taking, the way they're utilizing the tires early on to bring them up. And as we get ready to switch over to the race server, we're going to be in for a really interesting surprise here. We've got a good field out there tonight, and anyone could potentially take this victory.
Hello and welcome to the Aussie Mixed and Fixed Week 13 special event live on Apex Racing and the iRacing Esports Network. My name is Sam Fitzpatrick and alongside me is Daniel Leap with Scott Newton on the cameras tonight. We've got a very special event for you today. We have got Barcelona, old Barcelona, historic Barcelona in these classic Lotus 79 cars. Daniel, these cars were properly innovative at the time. They're still innovative. I mean, we're still learning lessons really from them in Formula One, going back to the ground effect inspiration that this car kind of introduced. And it's fantastic to see it back on the big stage on iRacing because it's incredibly underused, but it's nice to see a healthy field out here today.
Yeah, good evening, Sam. Great to have you on board, and all the viewers tuning back in after the shootout. Great to have you back with your company as well. But I mean, these are awesome cars. I mean, we saw it through qualifying just before. A lot of guys just struggling a little bit with the tyre temps and getting them up to speed and whatnot. We know how good they were back in the day. It's gated 6-speed. You still got a clutch pedal, which we don't use enough in modern racing anymore, which I think we should all bring it back. And we know that a couple of drivers out there are still using that setup today. So keep an eye on Matt Morris running the car as it was intended. But for qualifying, if we quickly recap on that, it was a great session. Stuart Vaughan put the GRM Motorsports 79 on pole position with a great lap time, a 1:34.26. Matt Morris will be starting out a second. Darren Lobb in third. Adam Briggs, Scott Gamble, Blake Delaney, Damon Stockton, and Edward Van Velsen. So it was a really solid top 10 shootout. And if you want to recap, you can drop back in and see that. But turning on to race day, I mean, what more could we ask for? A nice track, great cars, awesome drivers, fantastic event.
Definitely, we are now gridding up for this race, and there you can see the starting order: Vaughan, Morris, Lobb, Briggs and Gamble, Delaney, Stockton, Van Velsen, Timothy Beeben, Dean Ross, Chris Pellett, Paul Jones lining up in 12th. Then it's Joseph Delaney, Matt Lopino, Dave Clements, Grant Madaford, Benjamin Soko, Justin Swerk, Brenton Hawkins, Scott Chambers, Ben Arthur, Bradley Glenn, Julian Mookie, Peter Morris, Justin Cotsville, and Ryan Costello, I imagine, will be helping out if we need a safety car potentially in this race. And what a fantastic sight that is to see all these Lotus 79s lining up on the grid. We should still have a little bit more of gridding to go. In fact, actually now the green lights are about to come on. So here we are then, Barcelona historic Lotus 79s. We're about to get underway. And away we go. It's a fantastic start from third on the grid for Dan Lobb. Storms into the lead. Good stuff for Scott Gamble as well. They're side by side going into turn one. Inspirational stuff from the ERT driver. We might even have 3 wide going down into turn one. But who's going to win out? It is Gamble from 5th on the grid. He's managed to get into the lead. Delaney as well with a fantastic start to get up into, momentarily into second. He's dropped back into 4th now. I thought Lobb had it in the bag, to be honest, when he took the lead in initially. But Gamble absolutely superb off the line.
Yeah, and a bit of a shocker for Stuart Vaughan. He has dropped well down the order now, down into 21st position. But for both Scott Gamble and Darren Lobb, as you said, great jump from both of those drivers, getting around from the second row of the grid and moving their way forward. And for Gamble, up 4 spots already. I think fantastic start in these cars.
Just shows how tricky they are to get off the line. And Gamble managed to absolutely perfect it. And he's already pulling away ever so slightly. 0.8 of a second now is the gap. Morris back into 3rd place, but he is looking pretty quick as Morris. So too is Blake Delaney as well. Those guys in 3rd and 4th. Remember, Dan Lobb taking the last race victory of the season, or the penultimate race victory of the season, back at Montreal in the GT Championship. So he's certainly a man in good form as we head into the fast 13 and 14 corners here. Where this car will absolutely excel, and you can see how much of a different order this is compared to what we saw on the grid, because it's Scott Gamble leading, Dan Lobb in 2nd place, Morris, Delaney, Stockton, Beeben looking pretty good as well. Also, Soko might be able to get past Chambers, that's for 12th and 13th place, but certainly at the front, no moves into T1.
Yeah, really good opening lap for everyone concerned. No major issues along the way. We've got Matt Lepeman and Dean Ross actually already in the lane, so a couple of little issues going on for those guys. But really interested to see the way everyone's got off the line. We saw, obviously, we qualified that the tyre pressures really struggled for these guys to get them up on the opening lap. Everyone's been able to do it exceptionally well already, and we're already seeing Gamble start to build a nice gap. A little further down the order, though, quite a few guys starting to get into it. We've got Tim Pheeman, reigning champion, trying to now get a move on Damon Stockton. Not quite able to get it done as they run down through into 7. Bit of a tricky line for these guys here. All single file. You want to stay off those sausage curves, which we saw a couple of drivers through qualifying getting up on, which really upset these cars. But utilising that ground effect so nicely to get the drive done. Maybe just a little bit slower here for Tim Pheeman, though. Might not see him get that overtake done, but he's going to have to keep an eye because he's got Edward Van Vels getting up nice and close there.
Yeah, if he doesn't make the move soon, Pheeman, he could well lose out behind. It's such a tricky circuit there to overtake. One of the most tricky circuits on all of iRacing. Because whilst we do have a couple of decently long straights, at the end of those straights, it's usually fast corners, and if anything, this historic circuit is even more tricky to overtake than the full circuit, although turn 1 perhaps a bit more of an opportunity here. There shouldn't be too much turbulent air in these cars. I haven't got too much air, but they'll still be tricky to follow, particularly through the fast corners as Pheeman. Has he been able to get past Stockton finally? Yes, he has, and I think Stockton might lose another place here to Van Velsen. So that was the move into turn 1 that I was just mentioning about. However, Stockton trying to come back now on the inside for turn 4 wasn't quite good enough. Now has another look, and nearly contact between the two of them. They need to make sure they don't start losing each other too much time. But that does allow Pheeman to potentially go off and chase after the drivers ahead. Of course, a fantastic last season in the GT Championship, and now we'll see what his pace is like. But Al's in the lead, despite Gamble initially pulling away there, Daniel. It's actually closed up again. It seems like Lobb and Morris and Delaney and maybe even Pheeman as well are all matches for him today.
Yeah, definitely. The guys a little bit further down the order, as you mentioned, coming in really, really strongly in these cars. It was interesting to see last lap by because we had Lobb quickest sector 2, Matt Morris quickest sector 3. So while they're not quite there as far as position on track stands, they are very quick in these cars at the moment. I'm really surprised just how quick all these guys have adapted. Obviously, take away from what we've seen over the course of the last 13 or 12 weeks with the championship in the GT car, switch to something completely different in an open wheel format, next to no downforce by comparison to those cars. And the guys have adapted immensely well to it. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Lobb start to really close this gap down. It's on half a second at this point in time, but his pace is very, very good. He's just marginally slower than Scotty Gamble last time by, but very quick through the middle sectors.
Yeah, only 2 sectors around this circuit, thankfully. Good news for anyone using SDK Gaming. Because often we have 8 sectors around circuits like this, and instead just the 3, so it's pretty easy for us to follow. Absolutely right, Lobb on that last lap was pretty good in the middle part of the second, also fastest first sector of anyone this time round as well. Further back, Joseph Delaney has now been able to catch up to Damon Stockton and Edward Van Velsen. These, of course, Van Velsen and Stockton were battling with each other beforehand, and now Delaney's been able to catch up to these guys on that last lap. He closed him by about a second on Stockton. He seems to be falling back ever so slightly now. Any driver on the entire field, he's still lining up where he started and opening up the line potentially for 12 as we see a fantastic view of what these drivers can see in front of them.
Yeah, we were right on board with Delaney here, down through 13, getting that car nice in the corner apex. You can already see a little bit of damage on the left-hand front wing assembly there, so the guys will need to come in for a pit stop at some point during the course of the night, so we'll see that repair done, but it's not slowing him down at all. Last time by 1:35.2, it's actually 0.3 quicker than Damon Stockton. Unfortunately there, runs a little bit wide through 1, picks it up nicely through 2, but he's now going to have to keep an eye on the fast charging Chris Pellett right behind that gap down to 0.4 of a second as they work their way up through turn 3.
I'm not a massive fan of this new shake feature that iRacing have introduced. However, riding on board with the Lotus 79, if there wasn't some shake, I feel like it would be quite out of place, it must be said. It's certainly something that iRacing needs to improve on, especially on deceleration. It needs to vary a lot more. Deceleration needs to kind of shake less, and then at high speed it needs to shake more. However, it is a nice element when you're really heading down that pit straight. So appreciate the speeds that these drivers are racing at the moment. Certainly very different to what they are used to. Benson Hawkins also dropping back into Paul Jones. I know Jones started up in 12th place. It's a pretty poor start for him. I'm also seeing, I don't know if this is on the stream as well, but a West Ham light livery, the light blue and the purple. I'm not sure if that's on the stream, but I credit Morris, for Jones on that. Apparently it's not even on the stream, so forget that. But if you are a fan of Aston Villa, then he's right there. Also, Brendan Hawkins got a Liverpool livery, I am seeing as well. So plenty of these EFL teams being represented.
Yeah, certainly quite a few good liveries out here, and the guys putting up some awesome paints. Again, even for a special event like this, not only are the teams well represented, but getting into the theme of it, a little bit of a retro style design on these cars. Hawkins with a good lap last time by. He's closed down to Julian Mucky 0.3 of a second as they work their way up through the long radius turn 3. You can see Bradley Glenn just a couple of spots ahead, and the Fisher Motorsports car just struggling a little bit mid-corner. They work their way now up into 4. He's got it settled down a little bit, pushing just a fraction on the mid-corner there. Gets a little bit of oversteer on the exit, which for anyone who's driven these cars, they seem to respond the best. With a little bit of tail oversteer, you really push these cars along quite nicely. And I mean, it has been a while since I last got behind the wheel of one. I think it was classic Silverstone many years ago, but I mean, they drove so phenomenally well back then. I can only imagine the fun the guys are out there having tonight.
Definitely, and you can kind of see how they're just pushing the envelope, aren't they? They're just trying to push the car to its absolute limit of speed, and sliding through each one of these corners. And you can push it a little bit too hard, then you're going to be scrubbing off some time. It's such a balancing act, isn't it, of just making sure that you don't overdrive the car necessarily, but leaving absolutely nothing on the table either, as that's quite a big slide for Hawkins just behind Glenn. He does seem to be pulling away now for Fishy Motorsports. Soko managed to get past Chambers a few laps ago, I believe, but Chambers still within 0.6 of a second. You can see on the timing tower, bit of a slipstream effect, not absolutely massive, maybe comes down by about 1/10 of a second from the start of that straight to the end of that straight, from about 0.6 of a second behind initially. But what's fantastic about this race is that, of course, this is a proper Grand Prix distance. We're going to have 65 laps around this track, potentially 1 hour 45. However, I think we'll reach the 65 laps before that anyway. And so even if there aren't moves straight away, just as we watch in Formula 1 as well, there might not be any moves straight away, but it might really lighten up later on when the pit stops come into play. Of course, we're going to have refueling, I believe, in these cars as well. So it's worth for these drivers just to play the patience game, drive their own race, and might come back to them later on.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, we've seen it time and time again where if you play your own strategy, you can bring yourself back into it. And for a lot of the guys out there, I mean, they race against each other week in, week out, which is obviously going to help them there. As we see Gamble pushing ever so hard down through 13. You just see that little bit of a wiggle in that car. But I mean, these guys race a lot with each other. They know how everyone sort of operates. The change of cars with the different strategies is going to be very, very interesting to see. But also, just to touch on your point earlier, Sam, with the way the cars drive, I actually find the more oversteer you get, like the longer you drive these things, it's a weird thing. It invites you to push the envelope a little bit harder each time by. It just makes you feel like you know you've got plenty more grip, which is the weirdest sensation I've ever had in any of these cars. But it's certainly gives you that mindset. You know you can go quicker, even if you can't physically get it there. You know you've got a little bit less in it still.
Yeah, it's a perfect lap in this car, isn't it? It's pretty much impossible. So, yeah, you can always be able to find a bit more pace. Do these cars have the new tyre model?
That I'm not too sure of.
I think they do, but I'm only about 70% sure.
Well, maybe we should throw that open to the viewers in the YouTube chat if they do see, or we'll quickly duck through the ops manual from iRacing for the recent build update just to double check it. But yeah, that I'm not entirely sure. The car's certainly moving around a little bit. Probably suggest maybe they do. However, I have been found to be wrong on a couple of occasions, so we'll double check that out there.
Well, of course, one of the biggest criticisms of the iRacing tyre model is the fact that you can't slide. These cars look like you can slide quite easily, and the drivers still have control. We've seen very few mistakes so far. So that's a little bit of a swapper there for Chambers, but even then he managed to kind of hold on to that slide, managed to recover it. Whereas certainly in the GT cars, it's extremely difficult to do so. And Schwartz just not being able to stay close enough, and just not the quite the front end getting in. And by the time he gets to the pit straight, he's just too far behind to go for a move. Now does start to gain. Camera does start to really vibrate down the straight. Is there any way through? If this was a hairpin, I think he'd probably go for it, but it says a medium speed corner, and the A&J racing driver has to stay behind. Also getting really close now with Stockton, Delaney and Pellets. Just further up, that's for 7th place. They've been embroiled in a battle for the entire race, but I mean, whilst they are a little bit distant of the front runners, the actual gap to the leaders is 10 seconds, which, considering that we've completed 8 laps already of this race, and this is a decently long circuit, everyone's very evenly matched right now. So if we get a safety car and they can luck out on strategy, I mean, these guys could still certainly get a podium.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're looking at the moment, and all the viewers, you can do that through the SDK software as well. We're only seeing a bit under a second spread across all the drivers throughout the course of the field. So, yeah, not a lot in it. Each driver kind of find their own little spots. They're a little bit quicker, maybe through the initial part of the lap, or come up a little bit later on. So it's really surprising to see just how varied the times are. I mean, like I said earlier, they've only just switched over to this car. They've come out of 12 weeks of GT racing. We've gone to something completely different, and we're kind of getting the same thing again. I mean, they just instantly click with the new car and going on very, very nicely.
Have we got any idea when the first set of pit stops will be?
No, not at this point. We have seen 4 drivers already down the lane for what seemed to be very quick stops early on. So that was Matt Lapino, Dave Clements, Adam Briggs and Ben Arthur, as we see Matt Lapino coming through, running the very sort of time period correct livery on that car there, the old McLaren colours. A little ironic being a Lotus, but certainly looks quite nice out there. Briggs, as you see for DPR, with the carbon look there, and he's coming back towards Clemens a little bit. The gap still 2.9 or 2.7 seconds, but the pace is very, very good. You can see a bit of a graph there. He's actually cut the gap down by about 3 seconds already.
I wonder if we could go back to the start to see Scott Gamble's launch off the line, because it was I mean, you could write a book about it. I mean, I'd buy it, be a bestseller, because this was unbelievable. So let's see it. I mean, it's just the wheel spin control. Yeah. Oh, just light, just incredibly faster than everyone else. I mean, who cares about grid position? He could have been starting in 20th, and I reckon he would have been into the lead by turn 1. You also saw the Fishy Motorsports car getting very close. I think that was Delaney. He just then gets a little bit tight on through turn 2. And he got up into second place with Delaney. So he had an awesome start as well from 6th on the grid. But that was easy for Gamble, dare I say. It wasn't even like a struggle for him. He had the lead within about 100 meters.
Yeah, I mean, he comfortably walked it off the line. Here's another look back at Stuart Vaughan for GRM Motorsports. Just by comparison, we'll see how he goes off there. The car actually bogged down just a fraction off the line, and there you go. Scott Gamble and all the other guys coming straight through. So it was a bit of a struggle there for Gamble. He had for Vaughan, sorry, he had the revs up to go off, but just didn't want to get away at the line. And we kind of thought of it just before we jumped over the race, just to see who potentially might have a few issues there. There's a bit of a contact in the back, and actually that's what sent Vaughan around. And further down, 3 or 4 cars involved in that. So that's the reason we had so many guys early on come through for their pit stop. And unfortunately for Vaughan, it's actually meant the conclusion of his race there as well. So what could have been qualified the pole out lap corner number 2, lap 1. It's a very unfortunate event for him there. Darren Lobb, though, still sitting in the second position. The gap really hasn't wavered much. Still sitting about 4 to 5 tenths of a second. Gets a really nice run under the draft, down to 3 tenths on the run into 1. Still taking that wide entry line down through turn 1, sets it up nicely for 2, and then through this wide, long turn 3, he gets the car nicely up on the inside. So the grip in that car, very, very nice right now. Just struggling a fraction to match Gamble. Well, that being said, it was 2 tenths quicker last time by, so the car definitely there for him.
Because this race distance, I mean, nearly 2 hours these drivers will be racing for. In iRacing stands, that's pretty much an endurance race. When we have the Aussie Mix and Fix GT Championship, we often have we have 4 endurance meetings a season, and then 90 minutes. So this is a long period of time for the drivers. I just wonder how tactical they'll always be. We always talk about tactics in endurance racing rather than sprint racing, and just sitting behind his rival in the draft, perhaps saving a bit of fuel, maybe not having to push as hard, and saving some tyres as well. Just wonder if that's entering his thoughts at the moment. Stockton and Delaney, I think there was sorry, not Delaney, Stockton and Daly. There may have been a change between those 2 drivers. Stockton started this lap up in 7th place, to be fair, but I think they may have changed and then changed back. So this is the right order for them. Going into turn 5 now. Daly, I wonder if he just goes for a big lunge into 5. I don't think it was a deliberate move. And credit there to Stockton for leaving him room, because a lot of drivers would have been would have been unawares that. I mean, they just left enough room on the inside. And Daly, I think, just lifting off on corner exit to give the position back.
Yeah, he fired that one in from a long way. He was lucky that neither of those 2 drivers made contact there, so able to get away with it and back underway. No harm, no foul there. Adam Briggs, after his stop, actually closes up on Clements, who ultimately runs wide through turn 8, and that's an easy positional change there for Briggs now. He's got to set his eyes forward. He's got Matt Lupino 7 seconds up the road from him, so we'll see whether he can close that down, but last time by was a second a lap quicker, so looking very comfortable. And as we catch back up to the race, they're running down through 13. 12th position, we've got Grant Matterford, Justin Schweck, Scott Chambers, and Paul Jones. Jones and Chambers just getting into a little bit of a scrap just behind here, but Schwackett doing a really nice job there at the moment. Jones closing back in. These 3 have been very close together throughout the entirety of this race so far.
Yeah, about 26 seconds off the lead are these drivers, and lapping about 1.5 seconds slower. Chambers was quite a bit faster than Schwerk on that last time round. In fact, Chambers was close to Soko before, wasn't he? So I wonder if he just made a mistake a few laps ago, which dropped him a couple of places. Back to the lead. Lobb, pretty much the same distance back. You can see he took out another couple of hundredths of a second, but no, close to a move into 1. And I guess, I guess you don't want to run long. I guess you can go for the undercut in this car with the tyres, get some new tyres on, because then you would have a heavier car for the for that stint. I wonder if Lobb will try to go longer or shorter, do you think, Daniel? Try to get track position with the undercut, or maybe try to position himself better for later on by going a bit longer in this first stint?
I think it's a bit of a tough one. I mean, looking at the pace at the moment, they're kind of at the point now where they're starting to both impede each other's laps now. So probably for Lobb, the smart move here might be drop in the lane a little bit sooner, go for the undercut. Obviously, he'll get the advantage of the fresher tyres, and when we consider where everyone is out on track at the moment, that's probably not a bad thing for him. As you see, switch quickly to Peter Morris down through 2 and 3. So probably not a bad idea, realistically, for Lob to come in now and sort that out. Now, I did quickly scour back through just to double check whether we saw an update as far as tyre model was concerned with this car, and no, looking at the release notes, nothing new to this particular one, so it is as was.
Aha, okay. So the fact that they seem to be able to slide, I don't know, maybe that means that the new iRacing tyre model is worse. I'm sure many people will have opinions on that front. Oh dear, that's off the circuit for Morris, who drove it in really deep. It's shocking how many times we see drivers misjudge that that turn 7. It's such an understated corner, and yet constantly have drivers who just dip a wheel onto the grass on corner exit. Here was Lapina then, so Lapina just got past. Morris opened up the corner for 4. And Lapina managed to go all the way around the outside for 5. You can see how tight Morris is on the inside, maybe just letting his opponent have that position. And just perhaps a bit blinded, big rear ends to these cars, and drove it in way too deep, locked up the tyres, and went off into the kitty, let's say.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit unsighted there. Just caught the end of that lap with Matt Lapino braking very early on the run through where we're looking right now, 7 and 8. So that certainly would have unsettled them, because you expect the drivers to flow a little bit more through that mid-corner pace. So that's unfortunate, but he will be able to get back underway once it clears those tyres off. We should see that pace return. Chris Pallett, though, looking for a move down into 10. He's got Damon Stockton just ahead. They've managed to get past Delaney now, who we saw have that little bit of an issue early on, but Pallett nicely up the inside. This should be a pretty easy done move there. He's struggling a little bit though, Stockton not wanting to give it up as they work their way down through 13. A little bit of curb on the exit.
Change for the lead, I believe. Down Lob has got back past Scott Gamble then. So the change of position does happen. And Lob just set a fantastic lap time. Took about 0.23 seconds out of the former race leader. And it's the South African back into the lead. He momentarily took the lead on the run down into turn 1. But he's there again now. And we wait to see if he can start to extend this gap. You can see how Matt Morris is now right up to the back of these drivers. Also Timothy Beeben 4.5 seconds behind, but is closing in as well. As we see what happened, he was just that bit closer. Rather than being 3.5 tenths of a second behind, he was 1.5 tenths of a second behind. And then managed to pull out on the inside into turn 1. Not much defense put up by the 5-4-3 car. And Dan Lobb moves up into the first position. But Gamble still 4.5 tenths of a second back. That is a big few laps for Gamble. He'd like to stay in the toe of the driver in the lead.
Yeah, definitely. He won't want to be dropping away, and if he can close that up, have another look down into turn 1 and try and redress that position. Seeing Stockton, now that he's had Chris Capellet move past him, he's got Joseph Delaney closing back in again for Fishy Motorsports. So Delaney's managed to get himself back underway quite nicely now as he dives in for an early pit stop as well. So that's not a bad indicator. We're lap 17. We're seeing the first of our sort of real strategy players come in, and we'll keep an eye just to see how quickly this pit stop is, just as regards to how much fuel they're putting in that car. But while he drops in, Stockton and Pallett still going down into 1. There's no change of position there, and the car up on the jack, so that'll be a new set of tyres going onto that car as well.
Fixed setup for these drivers today. Everyone's using the same setup, and so everyone would have started with the same amount of fuel. So I don't think that maybe some drivers have underfueled the cars to go fast in this first stint. They've all got an identical car for this first stint of the race, but beyond that you can put as much fuel in the car as you like. I think we expected 2-stop strategy. To make a 2-stop work, you need to get to about lap 22 and then come into the pits. Maybe lap 21 as well. You could try and then do a bit of fuel saving later on. but pitting that early, perhaps he could go for a 3-stop, although I doubt the tyre will be significant enough for you to have to resort to that. I wonder if we could get the track temperature up, as that'll give us a decent indicator of how much the tyres are wearing away. 41 degrees Celsius, so quite warm, but it's getting cooler. The tyre should become more competitive as the race goes on. First up the race for Scott Gamble. That last time round, he's lost the lead, but that was a better lap from him, and he kind of learns how to drive behind his rival rather than in front. But first lap where he dropped behind, particularly in the third sector of the lap where he dropped behind back at turn 1, he lost a few, probably about half a second, and now just trying to catch it back up. Morris as well looking much more live now in this race, and Timothy Feeban, whilst being able to kind of match these guys occasionally, isn't quite making any inroads, still 4.5 seconds back.
Yeah, Feeban just struggling a little bit, but I mean, 4th place at this point, not a bad place to be. If there is any issues further up the field from our top 3, definitely in it with an opportunity to seize that. Morris driving like a man possessed at the moment. We remember, and for any of the viewers who didn't quite catch it, you can jump back on the iRacing Esports Network and check out the final round at Belle Isle. Morris had a little bit of a night to forget there. He spun the car a couple of times, and it really put a dent in what was starting to shape up for a good run for him. But great to see him rebounding, sitting in the 3rd position, as we said earlier on. Got Scott Gamble not that far ahead of him, and likewise Lob just a little up the road. These two only 2 seconds basically separating the top 3. We'll right on board here with Morris. Might be a good opportunity just to sit back. We'll take a lap and we'll listen to the sound of the 79 around Barcelona here. That was a lap on board with Matt Morris. While we were watching that, it was interesting to see our 1 and 2 on the road, both having minor little issues. Lob running very wide down into turn 10. Gamble's trying to capitalise on that. These two only 0.2 of a second separating each other up through 3. And you see Lob pushing that car, runs it a little bit wide mid-corner. That certainly opens the opportunity up for Gamble here, down into 4. Don't think we're going to see a move done, but that gap continuing to close back in, which was out momentarily ago to 0.7 of a second, down to 0.3 as they work their way down through to turn 5.
Last lap of the race that last time round for Scott Campbell. He's lapping backwards to a second faster than he was back when he was in the lead of the race. Part of that might be the track getting slightly cooler, but I think it's mainly just him having a marker in front of it. He kind of knows how hard he needs to push into each of these corners. You can see how much the driver ahead is pushing, and it does help to have a little bit of a marker just in front of you. Also, the fact that he's got a lot less to lose now in this second place than back when he was leading. And an overtake right now is looking almost more likely than back when Lob was behind Gamble. He does seem to have a big enough pace advantage at the moment. As we see how Adam Briggs managed to get past Bradley Glenn on the inside into 10. We see so many drivers lose the car on the outside of turn 10 so far today, but the 72 displaying so much more speed on the outside of 11. Was a very tight entry there for Glenn. And big sweeping round and ahead, moving on to lap 20.
Yeah, and Briggs pushing still ever harder there as he works his way.
So Gambo's actually dropped back now from Danlop. Back up to 0.3 of a second is the, up to 1.3 seconds is the gap. Just did a poor lap. Well, I'd say it was a poor lap. It was actually a poor first sector on this lap, so he must have driven it in deep into turn 1, and it's put Morris right on his tail. And after really looking like the fast driver, he's kind of got to catch him all up again, which is going to probably take about probably about 5 laps. So, will there be an overtake potentially from Matt Morris? At the moment, quite content to stay behind, but yeah, 1.3 seconds for even as well. 4.1 seconds behind at the moment, and then also Schwerk getting really caught up by Jones. That's the battle for 10th place. So they might see if there could be a move here. Just need to stay within close enough, as we see a cone now stuck within the front wing of Schwerk, and I just wonder if that's really going to cost him potentially down this next straight. Fortunately for him, he loses it and then comes straight into the pits. Just picking up a cone, whilst it looks very comical, it can absolutely crush your straight line speed. It causes so much more drag down this straight, and he carried on with its front wing. I'm sure that Jones would have easily been past him, but we see another drive coming into the pits. So in terms of scheduled pit stops so far, we've seen Daly come into the pits, also Peter Morris as well come on into the pits. Apparently they started this race on 50 litres, but you can put in upwards of 73 litres. So I don't think it's a one stop. Well, could it be a one stop? Let us know on the chat if anyone knows, because 73 litres and they're already on lap 22. Maybe they could go just on a one-stop strategy, perhaps. If everyone comes in the next 5 laps, then maybe not. But if anyone can extend it, then one stop could perhaps be a viable strategy for these drivers. But of course, your tyres will be getting very degraded by the end of the race. Also, a little bit of an update how the tyres have been updated. But not last season. It was actually the season before that there are updates to the newest tyre model. I must say they are looking very good out there. Damon Stockton now coming into the pits. Also Van Belsen has opted into the pits. So we are properly seeing the pit stops now. I wonder if we're just seeing some drivers trying to fend off the undercut from one another. So everyone taking tyres. Pretty long pit stops in these cars. I think to replicate what it would have been like back when these drivers were back when these cars were used. As Gamble running wide, he's caught back up to Lob, but here comes Morris. Oh, there's contact between the two of them, and Morris, miracle they didn't go off into the wall there, and that was very avoidable. The move wasn't really on, but at the same time the two of them could have left a lot more room for one another, and that was nearly disaster. Morris will be very thankful they hasn't got any damage on that car. Lob opens up the gap to 0.9 of a second with all of that, but Cameron and Morris almost just getting in the way of one another on that occasion. Gowan just did the fast lap of the race, by the way, was half a second faster. This race has ebbed and flowed so much, and we're only about a third the way into it, as we now see second place and third place both coming into the pits. Have to get down to the speed limit, which is easier said than done with the brakes on these cars. Staying out is Blake Delaney. Timothy Theben also coming into the pits. Edward Van Velsen still the leader of the drivers who have made pit stops so far in this race. The only drivers who haven't made pit stops are Lobb and Delaney, Manafort, Chambers, also Hawkins as well, and also Dean Ross. But any of those guys could still come into the pits on this lap as well. As in fact, yeah, a couple of them are Manafort and James both opting in. So Lobb and Delaney, you'd expect them in on this lap. Of course, Lobb, who was leading the race earlier on before the pit stops, might be under pressure when he comes into the pits with that undercut on the fresher tyres for a couple of his rivals. You'd fully expect him to cover it off immediately, as Gamble has actually come out behind Beeben. So Gamble behind Beeben, that is a big change. That must just be amount of fuel. Remember, Beeben was trailing Gamble by approximately 4 seconds before the pit stop, and now he is behind him, and also Morris is behind as well. So Beeben putting less fuel in. He was only stationed for 8.65 seconds, and I mean tyres I think take about 6 seconds. So he put barely any extra fuel in. So this will be a short next stop then for Timothy Beeben, which very much indicates that this is going to be a two-stop strategy, certainly for him. But Gamble and Morris with a 14 and 16 seconds respectively. That's changed the order slightly, and we wait to see what Lobb does. Delaney very slow into the pits. I wonder if he's run out of fuel. I wonder if we get an onboard with Delaney. It's a long pit lane as well here, and he's coasting. He's absolutely coasting. He might just have the clutch pedal down so that it can coast. And yeah, he has got he's sputzing a little bit. Fortunately for him, I think it's downhill for the second half of the pit lane at least. Lobb still in the lead then. So down Lobb, the South African, trying to replicate the success of his of JD Scheckter, and he is still out in the lead now. 2.3 seconds to Beeben. So it's a bit of a reminder. Lobb 12 seconds stationary, Beeben 8 seconds stationary, Gamble 15 seconds, and Morris 16 seconds. That's the amount of fuel they put in. The more fuel you put in on a pit stop, the longer you're going to be able to go for the next stint. However, the slower you're going to be for the next stint as well. So that's why the order has changed slightly. Manafort allowing Jones past there. And yeah, just being confirmed that we are going to definitely need 2 stops for this race. Hopefully you're enjoying the action. It's rare that we see this Lotus 79 on iRacing, but it is a car that you can buy. Strangely, it's not an archive car, which are now cheaper. The archive cars are only $3 for an archive car, which basically is a car that isn't used anymore. So say this isn't used in real life motorsports anymore, but you will have to pay the whole $10.95, but it is certainly worth it, because this action is absolutely fantastic. And yeah, certainly if you want to see more Lotus 79 racing happening, I don't know, just bombard the comment section on every esports video that you see, because this is some of the best racing I think we've seen for a long time. We're certainly on lap 26 out of 65, and this is a proper 4-way battle. Also, Van Velsen didn't take much fuel at the last pit stop, only 12 seconds for him, and you can see cutting from the leader to Van Velsen, not a big gap, 12 seconds currently, the gap between first and 5th place. Van Velsen, a Joe who I certainly haven't seen a whole lot of in the GT Championship, maybe races in the other Aussie Mix and Fix series, but he's now a long way clear of Chris Pellets, and on that last lap did a 35.45. Which is a little bit off the pace for Van Velsen, but for Hype Gaming, I'm sure he'll be able to get back on the pace very soon. Stocks are now under pressure from Soko. He was running outside the top 10 earlier on in this race, but has been able to find his way back up into the top 8 now in this event. Stockton was running a bit higher than this. I think he was running as high as 5th. I think he was ahead of Van Velsen at one point in this event. Started in 7th place after, did gain a couple of places after a good start. Soke certainly seems to have the pace advantage at the moment. Was half a second fast on that last lane. Better, 34.54. That's pretty much matching the race leaders' times for Soko that last time round. They've also got Delaney and Daly, Briggs as well, all catching up to these judges. And it just seems like it's half a tenth of a second every single corner that Soko's been able to take out of Stockton's lead. We've constantly seen it today. Really tricky to get within about 2/10 of a second through this final corner. However, 3/10 of a second he's behind at the moment. That could be passing range as we accelerate down this 1.1 kilometer straight. He looks to the outside, now goes to the inside, and Soko has this one covered. He's through on the inside, and he's up into 8th place.
Yeah, it was a great move down into one there, very reminiscent of what we saw earlier from Darren Lobb on Scott Gamble only about 5 to 10 laps ago. And yeah, very good at overtaking opportunity. Came onto the straight one. It was just under 2/10 of a second there. So, as you're saying, he's really found pace in that car at the moment and starting to already extend the gap over Damon Stockton, who has seemed, if anything, struggled just a fraction in these cars. Started very good, but as you say, did fall away. And I don't know whether it's just maybe the setup not quite to his liking, or just the adaptation between those cars just not quite there, unfortunately. But still having a very solid run, and if he can keep it within inside the top 10 and yeah, only half a second off, he's certainly got an opportunity to come back at Soko's within a lap or two.
So Glenn seemingly disconnecting from the session potentially. Was running decently high up, was Glenn. Actually, he is still running, but may just disconnecting and then reconnecting to the server again. So he did have some misdemeanors out there. Briggs, by the way, absolutely flying along. Briggs just set the fastest first sector of anyone. He's also the only guy in the 33s, or he was in the 33s, so I think he's just overtaken a daily on that last lap, which put him back into the 35s, but he was running faster than the race leaders. Sliced up in 4th place did Adam Briggs. Apparently hasn't pitted since lap 2, which I think is incorrect. Do we recall what went wrong for Briggs?
Well, we did see quite a few cars. When we went back and we were re-evaluating the start there for a couple of the drivers, we did see Stuart Vaughan obviously getting tagged and rotated. I believe there was one of the DPR cars involved, because we had 4 cars come in at the end of lap 1 for a quick pit stop to get back underway. So it has been a good recovery there for Briggs, and he's certainly bringing that car back into contention, as you say, just outside the top 10 now. But very good pace for him at the moment as well, so look for him to start continuing to work to close that gap down. Just ahead of them though, Delaney and Stockton still going at it. That little gap hasn't really changed much at all. To just quickly jump to those boys, only 0.3 of a second. Will this be the opportunity here for Blake Delaney? Closes to 0.2 of a second, working up through to turn 13, nice and close through the second to last corner. Both of them stay off that yellow sausage curb. Gets a nice run mid-corner, picks the throttle up very early here, and coming on to the straight just under 0.2, utilising that draft. Look for this move down into turn 1. This will be a repeat of what we've seen just only a lap ago for a couple of other drivers there.
Easy for Delaney. Back up into 8. Briggs already on these guys. Briggs with a 33.49. Second faster than the race leader. Incredible times right now from Adam Briggs. And I'm sure he'll be past Stockton. And before you know it, 5 is arguably the second best overtaking chance on this track. But covering up for Stockton. There's absolutely no room on the inside whatsoever. And Briggs has to hold back his attack as he, like he missed a gear there. I seriously doubt that is the case, but it's very reminiscent of something like that. I'm sure he'll be back onto his drive. I think an overtaking to turn 10 is going to be too much for him. It's only a matter of when, not if.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at the pace advantage that he's currently got in that car. He's certainly going to make a move through here. Let's see if we can get the run through the final couple of corners here to close out this lap, and if we can get within a couple of tenths of a second, as we saw from Delaney, and Soko's just respective laps ago, they both got their move done into turn one, and I think this is another opportunity for Briggs to get that same move completed. He's seen two drivers do it now. He's going to line up for a third. It's a great run through the final corner there. This move is definitely on Stockton down the inside already, so he's trying to make it hard.
Oh, they're squeezing one another, and Briggs almost goes into the wall. What was Briggs thinking there? I appreciate that he was trying to really be intimidating there, trying to squeeze his rival, but you gotta think of the percentages there, and that was an unnecessary risk that he took. And for the second time we see drivers tangle with one another down a straight, and well, they're even more desperate now to beat one another. Round the outside goes Briggs, and that will be one of the moves of the race, I'm sure, because that is quite stunning there from Adam Briggs to get ahead. Brilliant job for him. He drives it in deep, does a 72, should get a better exit, but I'm not sure if it's going to be a good enough exit. And round the outside into 7, that's not going to happen. And Adam Briggs making this one very tricky for himself. He had the momentum down into T1. He then makes a mistake into turn 5 as well. And now he's on the outside going into 10. There's going to surely be contact again between these guys. This is possibly the best battle we've seen all day long. Delaney round the outside, he will have the inside for 11 and carrying a lot more speed. And surely that will be it. I say I think there may have even been more contact. There's certainly a lot of shaking around for the DPR car, and Briggs straight away opens up a few tenths of a second on Stockton. He seems to be struggling all of a sudden, but that was an incredible battle right there.
Yeah, it was a really solid effort there, and a few incidents which I'm sure race control are going to have a look at, but did manage to get the move. Van Vel's also in the lane for his stop, so that'll drop him down the order now, currently sitting in 11th position. Briggs, though, still pushing on hard and fast. And just get a little bit of a look back here at Van Vel's, just the entry into pit lane, runs it in. Actually, no, that was a lap ago. Actually, that's a huge lose.
Ooh.
Into the dirt there, finds the tyre barrier and over on the lead.
Wow. Well, I didn't know they had roll hoops back in this time. Well, that was very useful. Van Velsen, who was complimenting a few laps ago, was running in a comfortable 5th. And he drives it in way too, just too much. And then kept his butt on the plots as well when he got on the gravel off into the wall. Shame. Shame for Van Velsen. I guess we're not going to get any safety cars then in this race. I thought that was a possibility. This is how Timothy Thieben has taken the lead of the race. He's been taking little bits of time out of Downlob, and Thieben takes the lead then. The car number 22 is on lower fuel, but this change of a strategy might have been the way to go. Interesting, Lob miles ahead now of Gamble and Morris as well. Both of them guys on even more fuel than these, but working out well for these front two at the moment. Here's Soko, and he's going past Pellets. It's for 5th place now. Soko to the outside into 1. I will have the inside for 2, and he does get it done. Good move from the Australian. He's up into 5th.
Yeah, Soko's come on very, very nicely. This car's certainly suiting his driving style, and we've seen some great moves from him. I was just going to quickly say for Van Vel's, I think everyone would remember the image that came out quite a few years ago in the Formula One, if in doubt, throttle out, and he almost picked it up and saved it, just unfortunately ran out of the room at the end there, but hopefully he can get that car back in. If there is a fast repair, we'll be able to get back underway and keep moving on. But for Soko's now up in 5th, pushing on. The lap time's very good, the sector time's even better, and he's bringing himself into contention. He's 19.5 seconds off the back of Matt Morris, but with the pace that he's running at the moment, certainly can close that gap down, and we'll definitely have to keep an eye on that. As you can see through sector 2, definitely quicker through sector 1, little off in the mid-corner through sector 2. We'll wait to see as he crosses the line, just to see how he is through that final sector. But this has definitely been a really solid drive for Soko. I mean, as I said, drive we haven't seen at all, but to come and do what he's done in this car tonight already, very, very respectable effort there. And just behind, Briggs also setting up for a move on Chris Pallett as well. So these two definitely on a charge to work their way up towards the front.
What could have been for Adam Briggs, because his pace in this second stint has been really impressive. He's been probably the only guy who could get close to Phoeben and Lob, who've been in a class of their own in this second stint. But Briggs has kind of been matching them throughout. Unfortunately, it's 32 seconds behind. Stockton and Daly battling. I think Stockton's just got past Daly for 9th place, but Daly in the car number 2 trying to come back now. Not that time for the Fishy Motorsport Australia as he spins it through turn 4. Well, this was how he nearly got past before Daly. Going into 1 once again. It's such a wide circuit, but these cars do look a little bit out of place around this incredibly modern facility, of course. Yeah, goes for it around the outside at 1. Takes a lot of curve for 2, but really nice room being given by either driver. And then it was into turn 4 where perhaps just a bit too much throttle and round he went.
Yeah, definitely pushing hard to do. You can just hear he picks that throttle up very early, trying to rotate it in the rear and drive it through that corner, and just a fraction there too much. He is able to get the car moving again. He hasn't fallen down a position, but he has dropped about 9 seconds now to Damon Stockton. So a lot of work for him to do to recover that. Further down though, Justin Schwechter for A&J Racing closes up on Grant Matterford for Pulse Racing team. So this guy's scrapping now over the 14th position. Not much between either of these two drivers last time by. Actually, I think Schwechter might have had a little bit of an issue because he was about 3 seconds slower than Matterford that last time by, but definitely coming back now as he gets underway. And actually, out of nowhere, Dean Ross, last time by, a 36-second sector. He was arguably the quickest car last time by. So where has he found this pace from? Because yeah, it's sad to see him down in 17th place, but he's certainly found something now as the race has gone on that's really starting to help him out.
Apparently he hasn't pitted yet, Dean Ross. I wonder if he towed back to the pits, hence why it's not showing up on our screens. But he just did a 33.54. Ross is about a lap and a third off the lead, however. So it's not going to serve him too usefully, but he's certainly throwing that late 79 into each one of these corners. Briggs ahead of Soko now. Not sure if we saw that one. Briggs just did a 33.43. Flying along now is Briggs, and Matt Moss is 18 seconds ahead. Still got 30 more laps of this race to go. It's going to be marginal whether or not we get every single lap in. So half distance was about 33, wasn't it? Yeah, we're not. Yeah, it's going to be really marginal, isn't it? What, 1 hour 40? Is that 1 hour 45? Yeah, we should get every lap in then. For these just only just.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be very tight, maybe 1 or 2 lap difference to see how it goes. This is a look at the move for Briggs to see where he got down. He was able to get the car turned in nicely through 5, where we saw a little bit of 2 wide action, only a couple of laps back. Up the inside into 6, actually just runs it across the nose there. Ahsoka gets it in through 7 and 8 and able to drive through nicely up into 9. So there was a pretty easy move there for him. All respect once it was done, but great driving from Soko's just to give him enough room to get that car through. But these two definitely in this second stint, and we've said it quite a few times, have definitely been the class of the field. Further down though, Paul Jones in 15th. He's got Grant Matterford just ahead of him, so he's closed up very, very quickly over the last few laps. We've got 4 cars now pretty close together, so Grant Matterford just ahead of us here. 2 up is Justin Schweckert, and then Joseph Daly right at the top, turning into 7 and 8 now. These guys are coming hard as we see Dean Ross finally in the lane for his first stop as well.
And Briggs as well. Is that a 3-stop then for Briggs?
I think it might well be. I don't know whether he took fuel when we saw him come in early on at the start, because it was only a very short stop there, about 6 seconds, so potentially just a little bit of fuel going in at that point, but that would certainly explain some of the speed that he had towards the back end of this stint. This is a very long stop for him, however. Already 11 seconds, 13 seconds stationary now as he clicks first gear and is underway. So 13.7 stationary and about 38 seconds total transit time there. That's actually not too bad a stop considering how far he's managed to get in this race so far. It will bring him out just behind Scott Chambers, and those cold tyres hurting him just a bit, not able to get the entry down into one there.
Really unusual commentating on a car that we're really not very familiar with whatsoever. So in terms of kind of how long the tyres will last, whether they're tyre limited or fuel limited, we're not quite sure. And even these guys, I'm not sure will be, even those 79 guys, I don't think will be 100% confident because the tyre model changed a couple of seasons ago. See how she worked now, right on the tail of Briggs. He's just come into the pits, just trying to warm up those tyres at the moment. So he's certainly on a 3-stop is Briggs. I'm just wondering maybe Gamble and Morris and maybe Gamble, Morris and maybe Lob, all on 2-stop strategies, I assume. I would need to probably get to a couple more laps as Schwartz goes down the inside of the Fisher Motorsports driver. He's really struggling on this outlap. I think he's going to lose another place now. Is Briggs potentially to that was to Jones. Daly moves past. So quite slow is that other driver. And that was Glenn who was dropping down. Sorry. Pellet and Delaney now. 0.2 of a second in this battle. Delaney was 0.3 of a second faster on that last lap, but not quite close enough for T5. You can see how consistently he's been faster.
Yeah, and as they say in all forms of motorsport, catching is one thing, passing another. And if he can continue this run that he's got, he's closed that gap down 0.3 of a second already. He's setting up an opportunity down into turn 1, which seems to be probably the preferred passing zone at this point in time. Runs the car down a little bit through the mid-corner of the circuit, just trying to fake a move against Pellet. Pellet won't give that one up too easy to see him run through consistently on the line. But for Delaney, he's closed that gap further down as they run out of 12. Keeps it within 0.2 of a second through 13. That's what we're going to do in that final corner there. They're both just missing the yellow sausage curb there. Gets a nice run out. The gap did extend a little bit through that final couple of corners, though, out to 0.4 of a second. So, unfortunately for Delaney there, not going to happen this time by, but certainly using the draft to his advantage, closes it back down to 0.2 of a second.
Delaney took less fuel actually at the last pit stop, so even if he does get past Pellet, he'll have to pull away a little bit because he will be stationed for a couple of seconds longer for his next pit stop, and also have to pit a bit earlier as well. Here was the different pit stops. Briggs one is a bit weird. I'm not sure how legit. Maybe that is legit for Briggs. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. So he pitted on lap 1 and then managed to put loads of fuel in, put a full tank in, and then managed to get to that distance. So I guess everyone is on a 2-stop after all, not a 3-stop. Briggs, he had to go for that mega long stop, and even at the end of it was extremely fast. And everyone else pretty similar, but it's just how long you make this second stint compared to how long you make your third stint, which is where the disagreement comes from the drivers. I wonder if we go back to the race because Timothy Beeben has been able to turn this race on its head. Remember, he was back in 4th place. He was lower than 4th place. I think he was perhaps even down to 6th place at one point in this race. He started in 9th, so really messed up his qualifying lap, and was a little bit by himself early on back when he was running in 4th, but taking less fuel for this second stint as seemingly worked because he is running less fuel than the other drivers, hence why he's lapping a bit faster. But that's only a small part of it. I think he's just mega confident. It's incredible how much this race has changed since the first stint when he was really no challenge for the front 3. Now he's easing away from them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for a lot of drivers, we've said it quite a few times tonight, it is a big change in normality for them coming out of the GTs or V8 supercars moving across to the 79. So for Thieben, he's been there or thereabouts in that first stint. Didn't really show a nose up with the top three, but wasn't that far behind them at all. And as the time's gone on, the race sort of come to him. He's found that little niche that really suits his style. He's keeping the pace very consistent. His best earlier on in the race was a 1:33.4. Last time by a 1:33.8. So 4/10 slower, over a course of 40 laps. It's not too bad at all. As you can see from the graphic down in the lower right there, you can see he's continued to extend the gap over Darren Lobb. And Lobb's certainly no slouch in these cars. He was very fast early on when we saw him battling with the likes of Scott Gamble and Matt Morris. And to have been able to extend as much of a gap as Thieben has done already just shows you how in tune he is with this car at this point in time.
He's got to be the favourite for this race now. We'll have to come into the pits quite soon, I guess. It's difficult to say, but you can certainly get to the end of the race easily from this point. So the pit window's open. He has had to deal with a lot of traffic as well as Thieben these past couple of laps. Delaney's almost got past Pellet. Was for a moment about half a tenth of a second between the two of them down into turn one, but couldn't get it done on that occasion. Maybe into four, we've barely seen an overtake into turn one. We have, I think it's been around the outside rather than the inside. Once again, we don't see it. It's a fantastic test for any car this circuit. It's certainly not every driver's favourite, but it's genuinely thought to have been a very good addition to the iRacing service, and hopefully iRacing will be announcing what car they've got the track data for, a new European Grade 1 circuit. They have said they are going to get the data for. Could be a number of circuits, Mugello or Hockenheimring, Paul Ricard or Red Bull Ring, Hungaroring perhaps, even the Kimi Ring. There's a couple of others as well that could be. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, really looking forward to seeing kind of what they bring out as a new layout. I think the A1, the Red Bull Ring could be a really good circuit. I mean, it's fantastic in GT cars, awesome in open wheel single seaters. That's almost a bit of a no-brainer, really, to get a really solid circuit like that in the books if the opportunity arises. Pellet, after last time almost losing the spot to Delaney, has actually been able to extend quite a nice gap, 0.6 of a second now, down into one. So for Delaney, he's going to have to reset now, take a little bit of time, find the groove again, close that spot back up and look for another opportunity to get this done. But he'll be ruined not getting that completed last time by.
Almost as though if you get held behind for a lap, then it can kind of turn into 2 and 3 and 4 laps, and it almost gets more and more tricky to overtake as time goes by. It's almost better if you can carry the momentum past your driver, because once you get stuck behind, it's got to be able to overhaul them. Even around this, especially around this circuit, I guess, with the tricky overtaking areas. It'd be interesting to see these cars around Zandvoort, for example, because that's an even narrow circuit. Perhaps would look a little bit more at home around that circuit, but it's certainly been awesome to see these absolutely almost the ancient cars around this incredibly modern Barcelona circuit. Even though we are using the historic layout, of course, it's still, of course, being built to an incredibly high standard. This was designed now. You certainly would think Batza and Island would be something that certainly Herman Tilke would be proud of. It's been a fantastic, been really interesting. Hopefully, see more of these special events being hosted by Aussie Mixed and Fixed in the future for future Week 13s. Also, a big thanks to Race Management Service for sponsoring this event, and they also help out with the top 10 shootout that you saw earlier on. And without Race Management Service, that wouldn't be possible, because Race Management Service really helps building the grids for these Aussie Mixed and Fixed events, as Scott James comes into the pits, and also as a nice user face as well, for user interface for iRacing as well. So certainly do check out their Facebook page Race Management Service or RMS, to see more details on that.
And we see our race leader, Tim Phoeben, in the pit. We also saw a shot just before of Scott Chambers coming down the lane as well. So this should be the final stop for Phoeben here. We'll keep an eye just to see how much or how long he is stationary for with regards to how much fuel going in. That'll put Darren Lobb back up to the lead of the race, and we'll keep an eye just to see how this unfolds. Phoeben already down into third. I'm expecting him to come out probably around the 6th to 7th position, judging on where everyone actually is on. So actually, it's a lot better than that. He might actually get ahead of our 5th place driver, Benjamin Sokas, and will comfortably do that as they work their way down into turn 1. So that was a good stop for him. 13 seconds stationary, and that's about what we've seen from most of the drivers, just doing a full stop, tyres, and getting up back underway. Delaney now 1/10 of a second off the back of Chris Pallett. Will this be his opportunity? Throws it down the inside into turn 1, gets alongside. This should be that position done, but it's not being made easy. Pallett certainly fighting back, slides the car a little bit wide through 2, keeps it ahead through turn 3. That's a fantastic run for Pallett to maintain that opportunity. And for Delaney, now that he's lost that momentum we were talking about before, Sam, he is struggling to get this car parked.
It's only turn 1, isn't it, where he seems to gets him close enough 5, and well, he gets close through 3 to be honest, but he never gets alongside into 4, which is pretty much where you need to be in order to make a move through 4. And then 5 as well isn't much of an opportunity. I haven't seen him get close into 10 either. So it's all or nothing into turn 1. So as long as Pellet can kind of fend that off, get a decent run through the final corner, then usually it's alright. Once again, he's just too far behind into 10. It's not a long enough straight for him to catch up. Hopefully, I'm sure Delaney will be absolutely reveling this. They're not really losing time to drivers ahead or drivers behind. They're kind of by themselves at the moment, are those two. So they can pretty much just battle one another. They are the 2 cars that they are focusing on. Here is a down Lobb. Has he made a mistake, Lobb? I'm saying he's pretty close to in fact, he's behind Morris now. And this is why, spinning it round, crucial mistake there for the former leader, down Lobb. And then another half spin, and then going into the wall again. Oh, well, you can make that much worse there for Dan Lobb. He will be straight into the pits and has to do a whole lap as well with a damaged car to this final corner again, which is rare, Daniel, because usually this final corner, it's barely an issue, even on this historic circuit. I very rarely see mistakes there. It was seen 2 big incidents.
Yeah, it's not very common. I mean, you are pushing extremely hard to try and get the opportunity and run down the front straight there. And for Lobb, just running that fraction wide, kicked up the dirt on the outside of the corner there in the gravel trap, and ultimately rotated that car around. So very unfortunate for him. And as you say, has had a long way to go to get the car back to the lane to come back in for his stop. So he's been able to stay, only lost the 1 position there to Matt Morris. Lost 2 positions with Gamble and Morris both going by. So this is going to be a big ask for him now. What can he do when he fires in? So gets in the lane, not too badly there, runs it right up to the yellow markers before getting it on the limiter there. So we'll see how long he's stationary for. We know the guys around him about 13 seconds, but if anything, this is really helping Tim Phoeben out now. Already passed after his last stop. Lobb going to be ruining that opportunity down through the final corner.
I imagine he'll be able to keep 4 for Lobb, but I think that's as good as it's going to get for him. So he's already back underway. 8 seconds with a brand new car as well, as long as he hasn't already used the fast repair. These drivers do get 1 fast repair across the day, across the race. And the 99 of Lobb will just about stay ahead. It does cut the white line, but I think that's a bit of leeway that the iRacing gives you. So Lobb, back up into 7th place, and is ahead of Briggs, crucially, who has pitted already. Briggs for the 2nd time, but he's way ahead of Briggs, so that should be no worries for him as Stockton Showaway goes past Lobb. Once again, these new tyres for drivers, it's barely always this outlap is barely an advantage at whatsoever, because it takes 5 or 6 corners to really get them into a decent decent temperature. Yeah, Stockton momentarily back up into 7th. So that means that Scott Gamble and Matt Morris should have the podium locked in now. Gamble now leading this race as Morris now comes into the pits. So Morrison, he will drop behind Theben, and probably behind Soko as well, but should still be ahead of Chris Pellet. Because Soko yet to come into the pit. So there goes Theben already past him before Morris even comes stationing. This will be a mega quick stop for Morris. I mean, once the tyres come off, I think he'll be straight away. Barely any fuel taken, and Morris back out onto check. 8.5 seconds stationary for him, and yeah, he is still ahead of Pellet, thankfully for him. So he should be able to set some good times with 20 laps to go. And we'll try to beat Gamble, but at the moment for the podium position, it looks pretty secure, doesn't it? It looks like Theben will be able to win out today, with Gamble and Morris in 2nd and 3rd, as long as they don't make any mistakes.
Yeah, it definitely should be good. Just a quick recap there. Peter Morris actually just spinning in front of Matt Morris. No relation as far as I'm aware between those two, and lucky for Matt Morris not to get collected up and involved in that. But for Peter Morris there, that's a long way back, and I think we've already seen that car utilise one of it, or its fast repair early on in the night. So to get that home in that state, going to be a very tall ask for him there. Grant Matterford, haven't really spoken much of him, just outside the top 10 at the moment, currently sitting in that 11th position, and a bit of a half loose on the Exeter 2 that will let Dave Clements for the Mark 1 Esports team get through. And for Clements now up in the 11th spot, he's got Paul Jones just ahead now.
Clements had a slow start. We've barely seen Clements today. He has actually pitted twice, to be fair to Clements, so he can go to the end of the race, so he'll get ahead of Jones. Don't think he'll get any higher than that, because Love and Griggs further up have both made their 2nd stops as well. Top 10 for Clements. Considering he hasn't been running the top 10 for the whole race, if he could get to check a flag in 10th, I think he'd be decently happy with that one. Matterford's still yet to pit behind him. Morris is into the pit. That's the rookie Morris. By the way, I don't think we've said it all day. The stripes, what they mean. So it doesn't mean a whole lot in this series, to be fair, because they're kind of based, I think, on the GT rankings. But if you're purple, then you are an elite driver. If you're green, then you're a pro driver. If you're amber, you're a amateur driver, and if you're red, you're a rookie driver. So that's kind of how this series works, which is very good. Means that there's a few different championships, something for everyone to fight for. But like I said, there's so little experience for all of these drivers in this car. It doesn't represent too much. However, Theben is well on course for representing the elites very well and taking this victory.
Yeah, definitely. He's been able to really put a very good race together tonight. I mean, as I said, he wasn't quite there. Stint 1 came on super strong through the 2nd stint, and now while he's got a 14-second gap to Scott Gamble, don't worry too much about that, because Gamble will need to come down the lane for a stop. But Theben, yeah, doing a very good job at the moment, and that'll be great for the team. They'll be really looking forward to getting this. While it's not the GT Championship, it is still a special event, and everyone wants to take one of those out. Did see 2 last time by Ben Soko, dropping in a 1:33.38, quickest lap so far in the race. So that was a blinding lap from him. Not long out after his stop. Actually, he's got a little ways to go before he makes his stop. So that tank in that car getting quite low at this point, but yeah, really finding some good form. And while he may not potentially get into the 3rd spot, he's certainly come on, and with track conditions continuing to fall further down as the day progresses, that's playing into everyone's strategies at the moment.
Incredible to see how little tyre wear there is out there. You know, Soko with his fastest lap of the race, the fast lap of the race, he pitted on lap 23. That was 26 laps ago. he came into the pits, Soko. And yet those tyres still enough for him. I guess it's just because they put so much fuel in compared to the ratio of the weights of the car. I'm not sure how heavy these cars are, but I imagine they're like maybe like 800 kilos or something like that. And the amount of fuel that they're going to be putting in is going to considerably increase the weight of the car. So yeah, as they kind of drain that tank, it does get a lot faster. And that is what Soko is finding at the moment. And Gamble is extending the lead at the moment, out in the lead. Well, he extended it for a lap or two. But certainly much more even to Theben than it was earlier on. That was why Theben, I think, was so quick for the second stint, because he was running a lot less fuel. But whilst he was running less fuel, I think that the majority of it was just down to some extra pace that he was being able to deliver. And now Gamble's got less fuel. He's being able to fill out the gap slightly, but not at a quick enough rate for him to be able to pit and come out ahead. Got about 16 laps to go after this one. We're expecting Gamble in any lap now. We've already seen his teammate come in, of course, after a mistake for Matt Morris. Apologies, not teammate, but yes, let's see a mistake for Morris earlier on, but Gamble stays out for one last time, perhaps. Still securely in the 33s. This will be another strong lap, I imagine, for him at 33.67. Only a couple of tenths slower than his best lap of the race, and that gap to Theben might just edge out a little bit, up to 14 seconds now.
Yeah, and I was quickly looking just in the background just to confirm the weight, and also thank you to Scott for confirming as well. So 575 kilo for these cars, so very light for them. I also made a mistake, which again I'm going to have to apologise for. I said it was a 6-speed. It's only a 5-speed in these cars, and the all great sounding Cosworth V8. So for the guys, as they're getting the fuel down in them, they're still finding a huge amount of time to be gained as this race continues on and they get towards the end of their next stops. We're right on board with Tim Theben. He's got the wounded car there of Peter Morris to contend with, able just to step aside and allow Theben to come through. But Tim's starting to close down the gap a little bit more to Scotty Gamble. He has been able to further extend against Matt Morris as well. So we're still going to likely to see our three from earlier on with Gamble, Theben and Morris looking to wrap up the podium. But Soko, if you can come in with a blinding stop, we've only got 15 laps still left in this event, might be just the surprise cork in the bottle here, potentially on for a surprise third position if he can get that car in and out relatively quickly.
Soko's currently 33.91. Oh, that was a good lap for... actually, what did Morris do? 34.41 for Morris. He needs to go faster than that, Morris. He did have a poor third sector, to be fair. Soko should lose approximately 20 seconds when he comes into the pit, so he'll be behind, but he basically wants to be as close to Morris as he possibly can be. And will have fresh tyres as well later on, though we don't think that's too important for these drivers. I don't think there's too much of a drop-off over a stint, and Soko stays out again. So these drivers earlier on, when they came in for their first pit stops, they really put in a lot of fuel, as Pellet gets back past Morris, who runs wide again at the final corner. Well, first he's wide there because there was a car spinning on the inside of the circuit. I wonder who that was, and then Morris, maybe a little bit still off put by that, runs wide onto the gravel through the final corner. So that's another second and a half he's lost, Matt Morris, and Soko is getting closer and closer.
Yeah, from Morris there too, he was very fortunate not to have had a similar result to what we saw for Darren Lobb and Edward Van Vels, with both those drivers finding the wall, running off through that final corner as well. So he was able to keep the car straight enough and get it back, and ultimately hasn't lost a huge amount of time to Pellet. It's only 3 tenths or just over a second between these two now, so he'll be able to close it back in. Got the tyres now, should be nice and clean now after going through that little excursion through the dirt, and he'll be back on pace pretty quickly.
So just thinking about it, I almost forgot that about Darren Lobb's mistake. But of course, Lobb, he was running in second place. He'll be behind Soko now. When Soko makes the pit stop, Lobb will probably still be behind in 7th place. Lob with that, I guess, more fuel than Soko, just struggling to match him at the moment. So Soko has been able to get up into 4th place. And like you said before, a podium is now possible for him. Now up to 16.5 seconds. Like I said, 20 seconds he needs to get the gap up to stay ahead, approximately. Pellet comes into the pits for the final time. And Scott Gamble, by the way, still staying out fast off the race at that last time for Scott Gamble. 33.27, gap up to nearly 15 seconds. He's been able to extend it from about 13 seconds to, 14.7 it is now. But, yeah, he needs to get to about 20 seconds to make this race. But it's been fascinating to see this different strategies used by these drivers. There's been such a massive range of strategies being used. We don't quite see this in the GT series. Even with the Endurance, I guess when we get a good safety car like we saw at Sonoma, that was interesting to see when drivers were taking tyres. But see the fuel make such a big difference with the weight of these cars, with the competitiveness of the cars. It's something we never really see. Maybe we see it a bit in the FW31, the Williams 2009 car. But that we see very rarely. It's nice to see this different type of race evolving.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see. I think for all the drivers and teams that have been out there, they've done a fantastic job to adapt as quick as they have. I just want to quickly point out that we just saw Scotty Gamble nearly drop in to a 32 as Soko comes in the lane, a 1:33.09. That's a blisteringly quick lap as he closes down on the end of this stint here. So if we can see him hit a 32, now that he's got that groove, he's on it, I would expect that we're going to see that come through. But no, for everyone, I think the strategy has been absolutely fantastic tonight. We've seen some really interesting opportunities of what drivers want to do. Unfortunate for Brigg involved in that earlier incident. He's now finding his way still into 7th position, but he has been exceptionally fast since he was able to get that car back underway. Potentially actually going to move actually a little bit down. He's 4 seconds off the back of Soko, but remember Soko's got those fresh tyres. So he'll have a little bit of an advantage over this first half of a lap. We'll see whether he can close it in. But yeah, what could have been, especially for the likes of Briggs. But yeah, for everyone else, though, absolutely awesome racing. But I'd love to see a little bit more of this. I mean, yeah, hats off to the rule makers for AMF. We get to see some strategies come out as a result of the 45 and the 90-minute race. I think we're going to really see another great lot of that next season on. But to have a little bit of opportunity where the guys can all come in, take a bit of fuel, play it a little bit the way they want to, it's certainly spiced it up just that touch.
Soko with a longer pit stop than I thought, to be honest. I was totally wrong, so apologies for that. I thought he'd be losing about 20 seconds. Instead, he lost about 30 seconds. Probably 28 seconds, I think he lost coming into the pits. Did Soko was a pit lane time of 37. But of course, everyone else still has to run that same distance. So yeah, probably about 28 seconds. So he's actually still behind. So of course, he's way behind Morris. He does look on course for a podium. With Stockton still yet to pit, and he's behind Lob as well, but only 5 seconds behind Dan Lob. With much fresher tyres, hopefully he'll be able to make a bit of a race out of this one. Remember, Lob leading for much of the early stages, but a mistake at the final corner ruined any chance he had of fighting for the win. That means that Gamble's will probably also be stationary, or will probably lose about 25 seconds. So the fact that the gap is currently at 16 seconds and still gaining as well. Half a second, 4/10 of a second faster gain for Gamble on that last lap. But he's going to run out of laps because surely this time now, he's going to have to come into the pits. Was stationing for 14 seconds for his first pit stop. Does he come in this time? Yes, he does. Finally, I have been calling that for about 10 laps, so I can't exactly say I'm correct. But he is finally up into the pits, and that was driving in deep as well on the pit limiter.
Yeah, just utilising as much track time as possible to get it in and minimise the option of positional losses there. We'll keep an eye on the relative and the timing tree just to see where he comes in. The car goes up on the jacks. It should be a relatively quick stop. Phoeben will regain control of the race as Gamble is down and away now, and he should also stay comfortably ahead of Matt Morris, working his way through turn 12. About to drop into 13, and for Morris, not able to get that car much closer out towards the front. For Phoeben and Gamble, these guys have really played the strategy very well. You can see up on the track map, as Phoeben works his way up into turn 4. Scotty Gamble now midway through turn 3. So pretty big gaps now with this final stint over than what we saw early on in the race. But yeah, very, very exciting to see.
So Gamble was 10 seconds behind. So yeah, he needed quite a bit more did Gamble to be able to battle Phoeben that second stint for Phoeben when he was lapping a second a lap faster than Gamble consistently, just too much in the end. And whilst that gap might drop down as low as maybe 5 seconds or so with the fresh tyres for Gamble, actually it's going to be Timothy Phoeben on the top step of the podium. Once again, Morris looks, it doesn't look completely secure in third. Stockton still needs to come into the pits, of course. And then Lob and Soko not catching up to Lob at the moment. I think those tyres still warming up for Soko, so it's actually 7 seconds behind now. And then it's Briggs, Pellet, Delaney, Clements, Jones into the pits, Madaford, Hawkins, and now with Ross, who we're watching, he's got Schwark just behind him, 1.6 seconds behind is Schwark, and also Hawkins as well, just losing a bit of time up ahead. Was 1 second faster on that last lap for Ross, and also a bit faster on this lap as well. In fact, an awful second sector for Schwark, I believe, losing about a second or so. But you can see on the timing time, you can also check out the live timing link in the description provided by SDK Gaming. Kind of white times at the moment between everyone, so about 1 second between each of the drivers. Stockton finally does come into the pits, and he should come out in, well, I think he'll come out comfortably between Delaney and Clements. There's a nice pocket where he will come out in 9th place, I imagine, for Damon Stockton.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe assumption there. I mean, he's pushed it very long into the race. It will still be about an 8-second stationary time when he gets down and away. But yeah, with the gaps that are starting to form up, that's probably about right. We see him rejoining there, just behind the wounded car of Peter Morris as well. So Pete just stays to the wide, allows Damien to come through. So now for Damien, it's going to be the first lap and a half, trying to get those tyres back up to temp and pressure. He has got himself quite a comfortable gap advantage at this point in time over Dave Clement, so that should be pretty safe and secure for him. But further up through the field, I think everyone else pretty safe at the moment. Hullett and Briggs, about the only close battle we've got as we just watch our 10th runner at the moment. Dave Clements working his way around for Mach 1 Esports team. Very quiet night for him, it must be said.
Yeah, I was saying earlier on how we've barely seen him, but up into 10th now and pretty much by himself. Struggling at the moment is Soko. So Soko was absolutely storming on. Remember, he set the fast up the race at one point. He was in the low 33s. Ever since he's put this new set of tyres on and made that pit, so he's back into the mid 35s now. I've been 2 seconds slower than he was earlier on, and you can see how overcast it is. The track is getting cooler and cooler. It's getting faster and faster. Down 34 now. It's about 10 degrees cooler than it was earlier on in the race, and yet he's being absolutely hounded by Briggs. 35.9 that last time round for Soko. Is this just a case of it's impossible to warm up the tyres? Because sure, he's got a bit more fuel in the car now. He's got, what, 8 laps of fuel in the car, but earlier on he was setting low 33s with 5 laps of fuel in the car. What's going on for Soko?
Yeah, I think they're just struggling to turn the tyres on. I mean, as you say, we were quite a bit hotter track temperature-wise a little bit earlier in the day, about 4 o'clock, and 41 degrees, whereas now we're down to 34, as you see the on-track temp still down in the corner there. But he's just not able to get the tyres turned on. There's a car out in the grass, or I think that might have been Morris. But for Soko, actually going to lose a spot here to Briggs. Briggs nicely down through 7 and 8. That's a very good move where he's actually pulled quite a few passes off. But yeah, weird to see Soko struggling at this point in time, knowing how quick he was early on in the piece.
And Briggs, by the way, he's in 33s. Is Gamble, so. And he's pitted around the same time as Soko. I think he pitted after Soko. So why Soko is so slow, I'm not quite sure. Maybe that's why he's struggling qualifying as well. This Soko, just struggling to warm up the tyres. Maybe just struggling to really turn them on in a short amount of time. Ross and Hawkins are really close to one another. Ross behind a back marker at the moment, so he needs to try to clear this drive. In fact, is that a back marker? I think that might be one of the leaders. In fact, I think that is Soko, is it? Yeah, it is Soko. But he wants to get past Soko because he's slowing him up. That's how slow Benjamin is at the moment. And Benjamin is only 6.5 seconds ahead of Delaney, and just lost nearly 3 seconds to Delaney on that last tour. This is a tricky situation. Oh, we got Delaney into the wall now, just as he was on course for perhaps a top 5 or top 6. He's made a mistake, or was it a collision? This was with Stockton, I believe. And a lot of netcode there for those two giants, and Delaney off into the wall.
Yeah, actually, I think that might have been Chris Pallett alongside him there. So very unfortunate for him there. And Soko, likewise, actually running very wide and dropping a couple of spots. Let's see if we can get a replay of this. Wide through turn 4, running down into 5. So just a lock break there. Runs it very wide, gets it off into the gravel. Luckily, didn't spin the car, so able to keep that forward momentum. But he will now lose a position there to Pallett. He just sweeps across the nose of Soko's car there. So good drive for Pallett, up a couple of more spots. Now sitting in the 6th position. Soko still struggling and now finds himself down in 7. He's going to have to be careful too, because not that far behind is Damon Stockton as well. So he certainly has an opportunity here where he may lose another couple of positions before this one is done.
Idea on the chat that maybe he put too much fuel in. He put a bit too much fuel in. He was stationed for about 10 seconds, but that's far from a full tank. I think a full tank is more like 15 seconds. So he's probably maybe got maybe 5 or so laps to spare, but I think that's probably the reason why he is going so slow. Stockton, I think, will be past him pretty soon. We've still got about 6 more laps of this race to go. These guys are going to be well, they're not. They're about half a lap behind at the moment off the front runners. Delaney Hank's coming for the pits then. Fix that damage means that Clements is now up to 9th. Just the wily old fox, Dave Clements. As Stockton goes for it into 5, and he is passed. So Stockton up into 7th now, and he made the latest pit stop, didn't he? He made the latest pit stop of everyone. And that 55. And yet he's in the 35s at the moment, and Soko struggling to reach the 35s, and he's now behind one who's got even some damage on that car. I wonder if he could ride on board with Soko, see if he's got maybe a bit of steering damage on that machine. Wheel looks pretty straight, to be fair.
Yeah, and there's no damage on the front wing there that would suggest any kind of issues. So it might just be at this point in time, the model updates itself, just a smidge of damage now on that front left corner, just fallen out of the window in which he was comfortable with it, because while the track has certainly cooled off, and we'll find that some drivers really take a liking to it, it just messes a little bit with the driving styles of a few of these guys. I think for Soko, unfortunately, it's been one of those changes that's ultimately hurt him just a fraction. Still, if he can hold on to 8th position tonight, which he should do at this point, he's got himself a 10-second gap over David Clements. He'll be very happy with that. I mean, it's still a good result. Ultimately, not probably where he wants to be, but certainly could definitely be a lot worse.
So it looks like we'll get the 65th lap of the race in with a couple of minutes to spare. Because we're now on lap 61. It's Timothy Bevan leading the way, 11.5 seconds clear of Scott Gamble. Bevan taking was running up or started this race in 9th position. Took more fuel at his first pit. Took less fuel at his first pit stop. Got him track position and basically was absolutely flying in his second stint. That's what has won him this race. Blake Delaney with a lot of damage still. I think he may have already used his fast pass, hence why he's grabbing round still. Scott Gamble in second place. Then it's Matt Morris down lob after a crash at the final corner earlier on. Unfortunately for him, was just before his second pit stop, so he's remained in 4th. Adam Briggs, after issues on the first lap, he could have certainly fought for the podium if it weren't for that. He now sits the fast lap of the race, does Briggs, just shy of the 1 minute 32s. Then it's Chris Pellett, Damon Stockton, Benjamin Soko, who's really struggling. Dave Clements, who's just set the fastest first sector of anyone, as Dave Clements. And Paul Jones up into 10th place. Under the radar is Jones. And that would be a good result for him. Also, Dean Ross up into 12th after running the first half of the race. Oh, it's Dave Clements puts a 32 in. Stunning. But Dean Ross, with after running most of this race in last place, doing very well to get himself up into 12th place. Credit to him for continuing on in this race. So Clements 7 seconds behind Soko now. He just was 2.5 seconds faster. He can catch up. 8th place. It's on the cards.
Yeah, definitely in with an opportunity there for Clements. That was a cracking time because I was just keeping an eye on that. We saw Briggs with that 1:33 dead, and then just a 1/10 of a second for Clements there to just go under. So really coming on strong to finish this race. Schweikert not able to get a move done. He closes in on to Brenton Hawkins. That gap 0.6 of a second. These guys scrapping over the 13th place, which not a bad fight, all things considered. They have found themselves in a little bit of trouble earlier on, but pushing it through very well. At the point, Briggs, again, a little bit quicker, another 32.9. So as the track continues to cool down, the time's starting to really come to these guys now.
You have a fast stack. You have a fast stack. They're all coming in fast now. You can see how much sunnier it has got as well. I wonder if the warmer temperatures have arrived here at Barcelona. It's meaning that these tyres are operating that much better, which is totally counterintuitive to everything that we've learnt on iRacing. But we've learnt a lot today. Unfortunately, we're probably not going to have another event in this car for a little while, but it's been fantastic to see this Lotus 79 out on track. Certainly been one of the best races around this Barcelona circuit that I've seen. Often quite a dull circuit, and yet I think this combination is quite absolutely fantastic. So congrats to the Aussie mixed and fixed guys for organising such a fantastic event. See Dean Ross, the only driver to not have made 2 or 3 stops. I think Ross towed back to the pits on lap 1 and put a full tank of fuel in straight away. And hence why he's been able to go to the end of the race. If they were allowed to start on a full tank, then it would have just been a one-stop race, which would have been a little bit more dull than this 2-stop race that we have seen for these drivers, because they were limited on fuel for the opening stint. Briggs with another fastest lap of the race. He's 4.8 seconds behind Lob, who himself is lapping pretty rapidly as well. They're both catching up considerably to Matt Morris, but it's not going to be enough to get back within the podium places. Stockton is past Pellet, I believe. What's going on there? Has Pellet made a mistake? I think Pellet may have missed, or maybe it's Stockton who's made the mistake. Going into the final corner again, we've seen 2 big incidents already today here, and we're going to see a third. Pellet hard into the wall. Doesn't lose any tyres because we're using the old damage model, but he's going to limp that car back. He might drop outside the top 10.
Yeah, and that's that same little issue that we've seen for quite a few drivers tonight. Just picks up a little bit of the gravel, and it's just enough to rotate that car around and heavily into the wall. This time on the inside, a little bit different to what we've seen previously. So we'll keep an eye to see whether he can get that car back underway, and hopefully it doesn't lose too many more positions. But Sam and the viewers, I put it to you this way: who is going to set the quickest lap time, and by how much, with just 2 laps to go? Who do we reckon it's going to be? Because we're seeing some blistering times coming out here at the moment. I'm going to take the safe bet this time. I know I've gone a bit ordinary on a few other ones. I'm going to stick with Briggs. I reckon he's possibly got a 32.6 in him.
Well, I kind of wanted to go for Briggs. I will go for, as we see Clements trying to get past Soko. Oh, there goes Briggs, look at that. I don't know. I guess I can really only go for Clements, can't I? No, I'll go for a wildcard. I'll go for Scotty Gamble to go for the fastest lap with a 32.7. I'll put that one in the hat, even though he hasn't set a 32 for this entire race. But his first lap of the race was a low 33. But fingers crossed for that one. Soko being caught by Clements. Also, Pellet is behind these drivers now. So this is about for 7th place. Clements couldn't have dreamt of this race. About 20 laps in, will Soko defend? He's leaving the door open. Here comes Clements into T1. He's not there. Soko having to carry so little speed through these corners. You can see how he's still struggling for pace. As we, the leaders on their last lap, these guys on their penultimate lap. Soko just understeering through. And Clements will comfortably move past. Up into 7th place now is Dave Clements. And Soko will have to take that 8th place and run with it. Because without that crash for Pellet, I don't think he would have been able to take it. So he drops into 8th place now.
Yeah, and Soko's certainly going to be wondering where the pace has gone for this final stint, because he was definitely one of the fast chargers throughout the course of the second stint there. And to see the move that Clements just put on him there, who, at one point we were saying Clements wasn't a factor in this to get up a position, and he's lost a long way down, and ultimately now finds himself 8th. And I mean, still take nothing away from Clements. It's been very clean, methodical race for him, like always, and we've seen that in a lot of races where we've been fortunate enough to watch him and doing it all again, which is great to see. So for Soko, he's going to have to keep an eye on this one, but for this man, Tim Phoeben, not only has he wrapped up last week the season 11 championship, he's come home for tonight with a few corners to go. First opportunity to get the week 13 special event victory.
Yeah, it's been an awesome drive from Phoeben. He started in 9th. We counted him out in the early stages. He's pretty much dominated ever since. Timothy Phoeben comes to the line to win this Aussie Mixed and Fixed Week 13 special event. And he is the champion in the Lotus 79. Gamble pushed him hard. 8 seconds between the two of them in the end. Finishes in 2nd place. And it will be Matt Morris who will round out your podium. Kept it on the circuit, did Morris was strong throughout. And he will end up on that 3rd step. Congratulations to the car number 66. There he is, crossing the line in 3rd position. Lobb and Briggs, rapid towards the end. They finish in 4th and 5th, and it does seem like Daniel's pick for Adam Briggs to set the fastest lap was correct, as he sets another one. 32.74 to round out the race. What could have been for Adam Briggs if it weren't for an incident on the opening lap of the race? Stockton, good result for him in 6th place, and also Clements and Soko, Pellet and Jones will be your top 10 finishers. But Daniel, we've said it a few times, why is there not more racing in this Lotus 79? The drivers love driving it. We love watching it, and that was just a fascinating event and kept us guessing throughout.
Yeah, look, I think we learned quite a few things tonight. I mean, we already knew the 79 was a great car from the history books, and for the guys that have driven it, they know it's a great car. But we saw some fantastic racing. It's a car that you can slide around a lot. It comes back on the it looks after the tires exceptionally well with the tire model that's on it right now, and that was evident through the end of the 3rd stint, 2nd stints. The guys were just able to lean on those tires and get the most out of it, and the racing was exceptionally close. So I wouldn't be surprised if at the conclusion of this one we see a lot more guys looking to pick up the 79 and get a few more runs in maybe some of the iRacing official races and really start to enjoy it. I'm certainly looking forward to getting back into it as myself.
Definitely. Hey, Aussie Mixed and Fixed Lotus 79? I'd be up for that. Even though I'm not Australian, but still, I'll try to muscle my way in. I think we've got everyone across the line then, and that's a fitting fate to see the race winner do some donuts on the circuit of Barcelona tarmac there. A fantastic host for this race. Of course, believe that this circuit came out 9 months ago. Really take it for granted now, but has certainly got a lot of use, especially in this series. We visit it every single season. Timothy Phoeben wins out, 8.2 seconds clear of Scott Gamble. Matt Morris, a distant 3rd, but still good job from Matt Morris. Dan Lobb and Adam Briggs, 4th and 5th. Briggs, like I keep on saying, so quick. 38.5 seconds until he could have won today. Hopefully we see him have a good GT championship next season. Then it's Damon Stockton. He was kind of up and down all the way through the event, but managed to finish in 6th place. Clements, he was running outside the top 10 for most of the race. Certainly the first half was having a dull race, and all of a sudden got very exciting near the end. Gained about 3 places in the last 10 laps. Finishes in 7th. Benjamin Soko struggling so much near the end. Finishes in 8th. Then it's Chris Pellet in 9th. Paul Jones, very quiet, 1 lap down in 10th place. Then it's Grant Malaford. Dean Ross, what could have been for him as well, in 12th. Justin Schwartz. Benjamin Hawkins, Blake Delaney, then it's Bradley Glenn, Joseph Daly, Peter Morris, Scott Chambers, Julian Mookie, Edward Van Belsen. What could have been from Van Belsen? Remember Van Belsen? He was driving in 5th place, I think, at one point. Could have even got a podium out of today's event. Matt Lapine, Ben Arthur, and Stuart Vaughan were all the judges. Vaughan started on pole position. But involved in a collision at turn 1, and that pretty much spelt the end for his race. So we should get a chat with a few of the judges. Will be really interesting actually to hear from the drivers, and already looks as though we have our race winner in the commentary box with us, Timothy Phoeben. Congratulations, Timothy. I mean, a fantastic result at Belle Isle last week, and then you back it up with this event today as well. Just take us through qualifying, because you qualified in 9th place, and yet your race pace seemed to be so much better. Was that a mistake in qualifying, or just struggling to turn on the tyres?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Qualifying, I probably struggled to get the front tyres working, and it was a little bit conservative. I actually got a 0 contact on one of the cones on the 3rd last turn or whatever, so that struck at my lap. But yeah, it was only going to be good enough for 8th, I think, anyway. But I don't know, the car just seemed to really turn on in the race, and to be honest, didn't own the car this afternoon. Bought it this afternoon, did 20 minutes of practice, got comfortable, I suppose, pretty quickly, and jumped into the race.
Wow, okay. So that makes your race win even more impressive. What seemed to be an inspired call from you was to take less fuel at the first pit stop. What was the thinking behind that?
Look, just drawing on a bit of experience from the AMF series, I suppose. I actually wasn't sure whether you needed to take the whole lot or not. I had no idea, so I was just like, I'm going to take less fuel, try and because I was getting lost in the draft a bit from the boys in front at the start. So I'm just going to take less fuel, try and get a bit of track position and get up there. And yeah, when I came out of the car, I was just like a jet. I honestly thought I was doing something wrong. I was like, am I missing something here? Am I going to wear out the tyres? I don't know. I felt like, Scotty sort of just let me go, and then I reeled in Darren, and he sort of made it easy for me. And yeah, the rest was history, to be honest.
What was the tyre wear out there? We were really confused because we were seeing fast laps of the race being set by drivers on 25 lap old tyres. Was there any drop off?
No, honestly, the car just got better the whole way through. I didn't take tyres once. It just kept getting quicker and quicker, and yeah, just the lower the fuel, the quicker it got, and the tyres just seemed to get better. So I think they dropped off really in the last couple of laps. I had a couple of moments, and the car just felt a bit odd, it was wandering in the front a little bit in that last lap, a couple of laps. So I was a bit concerned, but no, it was unreal. Yeah, super stoked.
Definitely. And looking forward as well to the GT Championship next week. I think you said last week how you're going to have like a week off pretty much. But how are you feeling about the first couple of rounds in that, and have you done any practice so far?
No, I haven't been back in the BMW since, so I suppose this week we'll test a couple of the cars. I think there's new sets out, so we'll just make sure that the BMW is the right way to go for us this season. But I think it'll be I think I'll still stick with the BMW. But now looking forward to it. It'd be good to see some new competition in there, and hopefully can run up the front.
Absolutely. Well, best of luck for that one, Timothy. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Just thanks to Ryan and the crew for organising this event. It was a lot of fun. I had an absolute ball. Love that car. yeah, such a incredible amount of fun driving that race. So just thanks to Ryan and just thanks to Mark One and Dave. He was giving me a bit of directions for the race, so that was good. But yeah, that was just an awesome event. So and yeah, well done to Scott and Matt Morris.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having a chat with us, Timothy, and best of luck for next week.
Thanks, guys. Take it easy.
Your race winner there, Timothy Theben, and Daniel, I believe you're standing by with Scott Gamble.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Scott, mate, congratulations, second place tonight. Before we get into the race, though, let's quickly rewind 65 laps ago. We saw qualifying finished up P5 after the top 10 shootout. Turned to race, 5th on the grid. Into turn 1, P1. How'd you do it, mate? The car got away fantastically well.
Yeah, I don't know, mate. I just put the clutch in, gave it full revs, and I must have just gripped up and took off. I couldn't believe it myself either. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, look, it was a fantastic getaway. If you get a chance to roll back through the broadcast later on, we had a bird's eye view nearly from your angle just to see how it was. It looked like a fantastic launch. You found yourself in some stiff competition early on with Darren Lobb and Matt Morris. You three seemed to extend a little bit of a gap over Tim Theben early on. How did you find the car over the course of the event? It looked very good for you early on and then stayed thereabouts over the course of the run.
Yeah, I mean, the car was good. It was, I tried pushing hard early to try and break Darren and Matt, and I got it out to a second, but I just couldn't really get it much more than that. And, you know, I paid for it a little bit through the middle stint where our pace dropped off. But at the end of the stint, when the fuel came off, you know, the pace came back. I mean, the car's really fast with the less fuel you put in it. So, yeah, that was how the sort of first, and we overfilled on our first pit stop just by accident. We wanted to go up to 50 litres again, and I think we ended up with 68 litres or something we put in, which cost us. And Tim made a great call on his strategy, and we definitely got out strategy that race by him. It was a top job.
Oh, look, it was a really solid effort there from all the top three, I think, from what we saw. Prior to coming into the event tonight, had you put many laps in on the 79 at all?
I had. I done a drive with 4 or so days ago. They had a practice session up, and I seen it. I went, all right, I'll jump in here, and I still wasn't convinced I was going to drive the car tonight. And then I had another go last night, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to jump in and do this race because this is good fun. So, yeah, I did put quite a few laps together, testing the car over the fuel run, the fuel load of 50 litres.
Outstanding. And then, obviously, we switch away from the special events for this week. Next week, round 1 for the upcoming AMF Championship. Are we likely to see you back on the grid for that one?
Yeah, possibly. I've been struggling with a right arm injury in the bicep. It's been giving me a lot of problems, especially the last 3-4 months. But I had to have a bit of a break there and try and get it a bit right. I mean, and dial the wheel down a little bit to try and help with it. But yeah, I do want to run the GTE series again. It's a great series, and with you guys with the broadcast and new sponsors on board, it's going to be awesome. So I am looking forward to it. Yes.
Well, mate, look, we definitely hope to see you back out on track again, having a run in that. But before we let you go, enjoy the great run for second tonight. Is there anyone you'd like to shout out and thank for helping you along?
Tonight, I just want to thank the guys and girls who jumped in the stream. We had quite a few in there. It was awesome, and I was switching backwards and forwards between the live broadcast and our stream. And yeah, so I mean, we pretty much done it ourselves. I mean, I'd love to thank Evolution Racing Team. They've been great since I've been on board with them and very welcoming. But we were the lone ERT car in here tonight, and so main thanks to all the people in the stream that jumped in, and you guys as well for running it. So thank you.
No worries, mate. Well, look, all the best. Hopefully the comes good very soon. We'll see you back out on track in the GTs. But for tonight anyway, enjoy second place and take it easy.
Thanks, guys. See you around.
So now we've got third place finisher in the commentary box, Matt Morris, in for a chat with us. Congratulations, Matt, another podium for you. That was a weird event though. I mean, particularly in the early stages, the pace just seemed to go up and down and up and down. It was difficult to tell who was the fastest at any one time. You with us there, Matt?
I think they're there.
We can just about hear you.
Yeah, dropped out. Sorry, guys.
Aha, awesome. So, I was just saying how the pace in the early stage just seemed to ebb and flow.
Oh yeah, it was quick. That was a hard race. That's really hard. Wrestling one of those things around for an hour and a half. But yeah, good race, I think.
Absolutely. And what was the you seem to take quite a bit of fuel as well for your first pit stop. Did you just fill it up to the brim?
Yeah, I didn't realise that we could fill the cars past what we started with. So I was sitting there and see the other guys drive off, going, "What's going on here?" And then I realised there's a little bit too much fuel in the car, and even at the end I had too much. So silly mistakes, but good fun race.
And how did the track temperature affect how fast you were going? It seemed like, strangely, when it got sunny, almost it's like it got faster. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, the tyres on this thing they don't fall off. They just keep getting quicker and quicker. And I don't know how many of the other guys up front actually took tyres at the pit stop. I'd be interested to hear about that.
And looking forward to next season of the GT Championship, have you got your eyes on a certain car that you're going to take for the for season 12?
Yeah, I think I'll be parking a Ferrari. It'll either be the green Porsche or maybe the BMW. We'll see. Maybe the BMW. I'll do some laps. I'll do some practice laps this week in it. Make a decision.
Absolutely. Well, best of luck for that one. Also, next week 13. Any ideas of another car that you'd like to see? This Lotus 79 works pretty well. Any others that you feel could be used for a future event?
Yeah, I really like the Nissan GTX and the Audi GTO, the old IMSA cars. I think they're brilliant. Bit underused. So yeah, they'd be good to see.
That would be pretty awesome event if we could use them in the future. Thanks for having a chat with us, Matt. Is there anyone you'd like to thank before we say goodbye?
Just Velocity Motorsport magazine, always supporting RMS Race Services for sponsoring the event, and obviously AMF for putting on the event, and you guys for covering it. And that's about all.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Matt. And best of luck for next week.
No worries, guys. I'll catch you around.
So that was Matt Morris finishing in third position, and we got one last interview, and it's a very special one. Daniel is standing by with Ryan Kolstad.
Well, yeah, that's the most important one of the night. Ryan, it was a absolutely great race out there from our point of view with the 79 and Barcelona. From the steward's perspective, how did you find it out there tonight?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you guys for putting on a great show again. RMS for sponsoring this event. Without them, our series don't run properly, so yeah, really want to thank RMS for that. Look, the event was fantastic. In the steward's eyes, we were a little bit worried with Barcelona whether or not we were going to have the big one into turn 3 or 4 or something like that. And whilst there was a bit of a bingle into turn 2, it was really just a racing incident. So other than that, we had a pretty quiet night in the stewards' booth. Justin and I just had a bit of a chinwag for 2 hours. So from our point of view, that was fantastic. But the race looked like it was a really good race, and there was a whole heap of different strategies going on. So we weren't really sure who was going to win it until about 20 odd laps to go. So it was a fantastic race.
Yeah, I think the drivers really all stepped up another level, obviously making the switch from the GTs, coming across to the open wheelers. Very different as far as driving styles go, but everyone seemed to get on top of it really quickly and adapt very, very well. We put a bit of a bit out. Well, I had a bit of a bet with Sam at the end there just to see who we thought was going to get the quickest lap, and we were quite surprised to see it drop all the way down to a 32.7. Were you guys expecting that, given what we saw in qualifying at all?
No, the temperature dropped off dramatically at the end there. I think it ended up being 32 degrees by the end of the server. I think it was into the mid 40s at the start of the race. So the temperature did drop off dramatically at the end there. And yeah, Adam Briggs dropping into a 32.7, which is a phenomenal pace around that track. Dave Clements did a 32.9 as well. So, the boys were putting in some really quick times at the end there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we almost thought Scott Gamble might have been the first to break into a 32 when he knocked out the 33 dead. But yeah, I think for everyone else, it came down very, very, very well indeed. Switching gears, we go from the open wheels, from a special event, back to the traditional GT format next season. Really looking forward to seeing that. Obviously, we saw repeat win tonight with Tim Feber not only taking the championship last time, comes back, takes the championship in the special event. Where were we looking at going forward for next week?
Yeah, look, congratulations to Tim. He's had a fantastic last 3 months in AMF, so it'd be great to see him rock up next week with the number 1 on his car and see if he can defend that title. We've got some changes for next season. We change things up a little bit each season, so we've got some new rules coming in. So qualifying is going to drop from 30 minutes down to 20 minutes, so it's really going to put the onus on the guys to really make sure they're on top of the ball when they're doing their qualifying, because they are qualifying with full fuel loads. So any mistake in qualifying is really going to hurt them. So it should mix up the order a little bit too. We're going to decrease the amount of incidents they're allowed to get before they get a drive-through penalty. So at 20 incidents, they're going to get a drive-through penalty next season, and 35 will be a DQ. I think we only saw 1 DQ from incident points in the entire season last season, so I don't think that's really going to be a big drama. And we're doing a fuel cap on the 45-minute races. So they're going to start with the standard 50% fuel loads, but we're going to cap the fuel tank at 65%. So they're not going to be able to pit on lap 1 and make it home to the end unless they're really good at fuel saving. So it's going to bring a whole heap of strategy into play next season. So we should see some really good strategy races next season in the 45-minute races.
Well, I'm just going to take the strategy playbook out and just toss it in the bin now after that one, I think. Given what we've seen with the fuel strategy and the like. So it gave us some really good perspective in the last couple of seasons to see with some of the strategies the guys have tried, having a complete change like that with the fuel caps and the like. I mean, we're starting from a clean slate here as far as that's concerned. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the guys can do. But Ryan, before we let you go and enjoy another great... Well, actually, I've got one more question I've got to ask you. Are we likely to see more of these great Week 13 events like we saw tonight?
Yes, we used to run them every Week 13. Justin and I took a bit of a break from them for a little while, and I think seeing the turnout we had tonight and what a fantastic race it was, we will put more on. Generally, we do something very different, very strange each Week 13. You could see a NASCAR car on a road track next season. You could see an MX-5 on an oval track. We like to change it up and do something a little bit different for the guys, something a little bit left field. So look, we'll go to the drawing board and we'll figure something out for next Week 13. There's actually 2 Week 13s next season because it's a 14-week season next season, but we're only going to do 12 weeks for the GT series. So we may have 2 special events back to back at the end of this season. So we'll see what happens.
Ooh, could be exciting. Well, we'll definitely look forward to that. Obviously, now we're going to switch gears and get ready for Starter Championship next season. But look, mate, thank you very much for everything yourself and the team do behind the scenes to bring the fantastic racing that we're seeing here already. I know Sam, Scott, thoroughly enjoyed it. But yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing it back out again next week.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Van Kolstad there, organizer of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed series. Final word then, Daniel. A brilliant event we're seeing tonight, and I'm just looking forward to the GT Championship coming up. It's one of the most competitive series we broadcast on Apex Racing Team. I'm sure it's one of the most competitive we see on the esports network as well. And that change that the fuel is now limited, I think is a fantastic move because it brings in a whole lot more strategy. Before, we kind of just saw everyone pit on the first lap if there was a safety car. That happened kind of 4 or 5 times across the season. Now that it's capped, I think we're going to see a lot more kind of fuel-saving tactics used by drivers, and it's going to be a lot more competitive.
Yeah, look, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens with that. I think, as Ryan said, that the change in having a capped fuel window, especially for the 45-minute race, is really going to throw the door wide open for the opportunities and strategies the guys want to run with it. I know a few seasons back when Scott and I were watching the official IMSA race, we saw some guys be very, very diligent on the right foot and could get some massive fuel windows out of these GTE cars. So potentially we'll see a lot of that come back through. First week out, next week, we're off to Silverstone. That circuit in itself, while there is some high speed, or quite a bit of high speed around there, there's some quite technical bits where the guys are going to have to be really careful on the throttle to try and extend that fuel window. So, we may see, where the guys tonight tried to get those passes done quick, clean, straight away, we might see them slowly close up, try and maintain a little bit of an advantage, use the car in front to coast, lift and coast a bit through some of these corners to try and extend that window that fraction more. It's anyone's game. I mean, it's really exciting to see. Obviously, we've got a new defending champion, new defending champions, I should say, across all four categories with the driver standings. So it's going to be really exciting to see what happens.
It will be brilliant, won't it, to see what occurs for this next 12 weeks, the season 12 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Championship. You can catch every single round on Apex Racing TV and on the iRacing eSports Network. And as Daniel was saying, we head to Silverstone next week for a 45-minute race. You do not want to miss it. If you've enjoyed this video, please do leave a like on it and subscribe to the iRacing eSports Network, because there's so much more stuff coming up, including tonight. If you want to get some early GT action, you can watch the Apex Racing League GT Championship running the GT cars. That will be at Phillip Island. That's a Euro series, so that will be on at about 19 GMT. Would be fantastic if you could tune into that. That will be the first time that's ever been on the eSports Network. It will also be on Apex Racing TV, of course, where we host loads of different events as well. Certainly recommend subscribing to that. Some 20 to 30 events every single week. So I'm sure there'll be something to quench your racing thirst. And so we'll see you back next week for round 1 of season 12 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Championship. But for now, from me, from Daniel, and from Scott, once again, it's Beeben out on top. We will see you back soon, very soon.